Okay, well, we are here for Ship Talk. My name is Clyde. You're going to find this on YouTube a little bit later. Right now, we are live at twitch.tv/Clyde Plays Live. With me here to talk about steel ships is Mr. Skada. Skada, say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody, indeed. So we've done this show a number of times. We call it Ship Talk or sometimes Ship Show, a little bit of both. I think I tend to go back and forth, treat those terms interchangeably. But what the plan is today is to walk through all of the ships that you can buy for steel in World of Warships right now, and then one ship that is coming out soon. And we're just going to sort of talk about the ships. What we're not going to do is a tier list. We're not going to tell you you have to get these ones and these ones are trash. We're going to talk about the strengths and the virtues of every ship. We're going to talk about whether or not we enjoy those ships and some of our experiences in them. The more experience we have, the more we'll be able to talk there. We have, or I can say that I have played all of the steel ships at least once. But it doesn't mean that I have games and games and games in them, because I've had access to some of them on my press account. I don't have them all on my real account, so obviously, or my personal account. So obviously, I haven't played all of these games extensively. Skada, you've, I think, played most or all of these ships. Some of them, of course, because of the NDA you've signed for being in the test program, you won't be able to speak to. Mm-hmm. So that'll be something that we'll tiptoe around carefully, make sure we're observing the rules there in our agreement. But just so you know, that's part of what's going on. So this slide I've got over here, this little art piece, this little picture with a pondering Clyde, talks a little bit about steel ships, and what's just kind of gives you a basic rundown of what's available. So right now there are 10 ships available in the game, if I did my math correctly. Actually, I think it's 11. That's unfortunate. Or, well, something on this slide is wrong. I don't know which one.
Yeah, there's 11. There is 11 active for you right now, and then one on the way. Yeah,
I think it's 11. I think so. I think there's 10 tier 10s and 1 tier 9. So I've got an error on the slide. We'll fix that in post. Anyway, so what we have is we've got 1 aircraft carrier, 4 battleships, 4 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and I put a +1 in there because last time we did this video there was only 1. It was just the Ragnar, and now we have the Ragnar and the Z42. And at present there are 0 submarines, but that may change here in the near future. The total cost for all of these ships, if you wanted to buy all of them right now and you had none of them, is 290,000 steel. And of course, if you use a coupon, that total comes down to 217,500 steel. So it kind of speaks to how much steel you can save by using your coupons. And we know steel is a little bit regulated. You can't just go out and get steel in any old match. You can't earn steel every, for just playing the game. You have to do a couple of special things. Skada, do you want to talk about, let me throw this to you a little bit just to make sure it's more of a dialogue here. How can we earn steel in World of Warships?
Well, there's so many ways now.
There are more than there used to be, yeah.
Back when I started playing, it was pretty much just clans. Maybe ranked had steel at that point, although I feel like ranked was kind of in a weird place when I started playing and kind of came back and has changed. Nowadays, and then for a while, you got like a pittance of steel from like your daily mission chains, and now right. There's steel littered all over the battle pass. There's steel in dockyard events, which seem to happen even if you don't pay money into the dockyard events and earn the ships. Sometimes you can get to the point where you get steel, although a lot of times the chunk of steel is maybe the second to last drop, or the third, or maybe the third, maybe the last drop before the ship. Let's see, where else can you get steel? Geez, I don't think they've let you exchange anything for it, although they did some weird events recently with exchanges. I don't think steel was involved in that. I think it's mostly ranked, clans, battle pass,
and then dockyard you mentioned,
and then like snowflake event, like
yeah,
that. Well, not snowflake events, but birthday month. Anniversary month. Historically, we won't know this year if that changes any, but historically, you get steel for getting wins in tier 8 and tier 9 ships. Usually you get like 75 steel per. And then if you have your clan, if your clan has the steel port, that gets you a percentage buff on every little bit of steel you earn, which adds up. If you have the Super Wawa Battle Pass, that also pretty much consistently has given you an additional 5% bump on steel earnings. And and so yeah, I feel like steel flows a lot faster than it used to. Still not as fast as coal. Right. Definitely slower than research points.
We got a couple of folks who've said It was the minister said June 7th, Incomparable is my next steel ship. So the minister's already got their ship picked out. And then I saw another comment, I can't remember who it was, that said, this is a really timely topic because the coupon is coming back. That's exactly right. The coupon is coming back.
Whoa!
And that is happening in June. Let me show you where that is. So if you come in here and you go to your armory, for anybody who's never done this before, you can click up here where it says coupons, and it shows you this. 18 days is when we get our Ships for Resources coupon back. So that is one of the big reasons why we're doing this conversation. I feel like that kind of covers the steel economy pretty well. I think what we'll do is move on and start talking about our first ships for the discussion today. So let me close that out and go over to this page. I think what we'll do is we'll start with this group's aircraft carriers and destroyers. I put them together so that they would all fit on pages. These ships, of course, are quite different from one another. I'll start off and talk about Ragnar. Ragnar's been a steel destroyer for a long time. She's got a lot of hit points. She's quite capable. We've seen her participate in competitive a lot. She's a no torpedoes destroyer. She's only fast when using her speed boost, which makes her kind of slow and a little bit sluggish to maneuver. But she's got 150 millimeter main battery guns and a reasonable DPM and reasonable punching power. You can actually do pretty good damage to cruisers with the Ragnar, and I found her to be kind of challenging to play when I first got her. And I like gunboat destroyers, but I wasn't really ready. This is kind of my experience. I wasn't really ready for the idea that she wasn't really fast and in terms of maneuverability. And so I found Ragnar kind of challenging to play, but through a little bit of time and a little bit of practice, I've started to bring my understanding of how to utilize that ship around a little bit. Trying to think about my build in this boat. I think she's got like 30,000 hit points, but I want to confirm that. It's been a little while since I played my Ragnar. Let me grab it here. Yeah, and in my build, 30,000 hit points. Quite the punchy little destroyer. One of the things that's neat about her is her speed boost. I mentioned she's got one, and it's not just a regular speed boost. It's a 30% speed increase. So her maneuverability in my build's 37 knots, but when you hit that, you get another almost 10 knots of speed. And it doesn't last for very, very long. For me, it lasts 78 seconds in the way I've built it, so just over a minute. But then you've got almost 3 minutes of cooldown time on the speed. So you need to use that at the right time and not just hope you have it because you're using it all willy-nilly. For me, Ragnar's been a boat that I've enjoyed, but I will say it's been a bit of a challenge for me. But I think a lot of the boats that have a high skill ceiling are that way, or a lot of damage potential. I shouldn't say damage. I should say battle influence potential. They tend to have kind of a higher skill ceiling, and it's been pretty challenging. Odie says, it's a fun boat. It can be really super effective in games, even without the torpedoes. We had Dodgy Dingo go, a DD with no torps? Yes, Dodgy Dingo. They exist. They're out there. Now, Skada, have you played Ragnar in a capacity where you're able to speak about it, or is this one that you've got NDA concerns with? I can't remember if you tested this one or not. Is the only
No, I wasn't in test when Ragnar was in test, but my play in Ragnar has not occurred on production server. So
gotcha. Okay.
But what I can speak to is playing against Ragnar.
There you go. Yeah.
To try to add something to the conversation. For starters, sure. I do not have Ragnar. Ragnar's one of the 3 steel ships I don't have. Because I don't want Ragnar very much. It's not for me.
And I think that's a really valid perspective. That's a good one to share, I think, while we have this time.
I don't want if it could smoke.
Oh, that's a thing I didn't mention. No smoke. Yeah.
If it could smoke, because it's big. I think it's the size of a cruiser. It's like a large destroyer. Mm-hmm. And so it's not fast, and it's not slow, but it's not like a fast ED, right? So it's not like a fast gunboat unless you're using the speed boost that it has. And it has like the emergency engine power speed boost that's like 30% speed increase.
Yeah.
But like you don't have that all the time, and it's got high concealment, right? Like the concealment's like 7.5. It's like the same as the radar range, if I remember right.
It is. When built for it, your radar and your conceal are both 7.5 kilometers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like if it's one of those boats where it's like, oh well, if you're spotted, but you hit radar, and the radar runs a really long time. It's like a 30-second radar base. This is one of those boats where I don't know, it might be kind of a Sophie's choice whether you wanted to put the radar module in slot 2 or the speed boost module in slot 2. If I owned it, I'd probably have to put the speed boost there because I don't like the speed that it puts out.
In my build, I did put the speed boost module there, and you're correct.
Yeah.
The radar's 30 seconds in duration
It's
base.
like a nice long radar, which is pretty sick for a destroyer.
Rad.
So
Yeah.
the when you play against one of these early match, right? If you're in a stealthy destroyer trying to get into a cap, this thing shows up as soon as you see it. It radars you, and then it's got these big 150s that have a really fast reload. The HE's powerful, and it melts a DD, right? And that's it. That's what it does. It pounces on DDs.
Yeah.
I think personal playstyle preference, like I would like to see it have even a rack of like, 4 European torps that are like fast, low damage torps or something, just to balance out what it can do a little bit. It's just not a boat that I'm ever been super interested in. I appreciate it as repair party and stuff, but like I have small end, so like if I want to play a European destroyer that doesn't have smoke, that has radar, I can play small end, and it doesn't have as big a guns, but it has torps, and the guns work pretty good on it, and it's got concealment.
Right, it's got the dock.
It's got concealment, right? And so, and that's not necessarily fair to say because you can't buy small end. It's not available generally, but that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't race out to get a Ragnar. The other thing I can't speak to a ton, but next month, we all know from patch notes and things, next month we're recording this in May of 2023.
Right.
Next month, the pan-European destroyer tech tree split will enter early access.
Yeah.
And the tier 8, 9, and 10 tech tree boats all are DDs with radar. So if I really want like a poor conceal gunboat with radar, I don't have to spend steel on it. I could just wait and get one with, through playing. It's a tech tree boat. Now, I'm not saying that those ships compare directly to Ragnar's playstyle, but it's a similarity, right? So you can do that kind of thing. But Ragnar definitely is popular, and it's popular and competitive as well. I think he gets played a lot ranked, doesn't it?
I think it does, yeah. You tend to see him there. When it first came out, it was kind of the darling of COTS for sure. You talked about the length of this ship. It is the third longest destroyer out of all 24 Tier 10 destroyers in the game. The only ones longer being Elbing and Haraguma, which we know to be extremely long boys. So 145 meters. The shortest destroyer is Summers, which is 114 meters. Which is like 31 meters shorter, right? So it's 100 feet almost for those of us using the King's measurements. But it's a big ship, you said, and it's not short either. Look, it's kind of tall, and so it can catch shells. You talked about its ability to fight destroyers and things, and it does that really well. But it also farms battleships. We had a comment in chat just a moment ago that said, "Oh yeah, it doesn't have like a big alpha strike, so you gotta like farm stuff from range." And that's kind of true, and it does that really well. I think if you catch a destroyer out, it's got a rapid enough reload and a punchy enough set of 150s that you can do some work against the DD, like you talked, for sure.
Do you run reload in slot 6 on yours, or is it a range situation?
I run reload, but I have some range, I think, baked into my captain.
You have like AFT, yeah, because shell speed on it's great. Like the shell speed's 900 meters per second. Like the arcs are flat.
You hit what you click on. When you miss, it's your fault, right?
Dare I say Soviet-esque in this game, shell speeds, right? So downside there is if you're like a Friesland player, somebody who likes a European a European DD without torpedoes and rat attack guns. Those guns have a little bit more arc to them. So in Friesland, you can do some island lobbing, and I feel like that'd be hard to do in Ragnar with what I'm seeing from the shell ballistics.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I'll tell you, with mine, I didn't go with the range mod in slot 6. I went with reload because I wanted to boost that DPM, because I know that's important for it's a 2-turret ship, right? 4 barrels, 4 barrels split into 2 turrets. And even with just doing the, I think it's AFT, or what do they call it now? Main battery and AA expert now. the firing range is 15.6 kilometers, which is
that's
really
pretty
long.
good.
And you can't really enjoy a 15.6 kilometer range destroyer unless it's got good ballistics. And I found that to be something that, you brought that up, and it really works well. And that lets you farm larger ships. And if you get in within 12, 13, even 11 smaller ships, you can hit just right. And with those flat arcs, if you catch a cruiser with those 150s, try the AP out. You'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised.
For example, just to try to encapsulate that when we're talking about the shell speed, I say, oh, the shells are fast. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but shell flight time. So on his build, if you're firing those shells at 15 kilometers, which is pretty much the the end of his range there, it's a 10.4 second flight time. So you can imagine other ships you've played, you probably have an idea what shell flight time is like, and so that's fast at those ranges. If you tried to shoot a daring gun at 15 kilometers, that's not that kind of flight time, right? And the DDs all have the same like sigmas and stuff. Like DD gunnery is like universal in that regard. We don't have to talk about that like you do on a battleship, so they're the guns are pretty accurate. Right.
No, they are. I just wanted to jump in. The daring flight time, I looked it up while you were talking about it, is 4 seconds worse.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. At 15 kilometers.
I don't know that Ragnar has the most hot rod guns. I don't think they necessarily does without looking at everything. But again, that's a great speed. So considering it's all you got, you don't have smoke. And that's the thing I think that I've always found displeasure about it. If it had smoke, I know why they didn't do it, because they're like, well, it has this radar. We don't want to do smoke radar.
We'll never do that.
Yeah, and then they put out a tech line that does that.
Tech line,
exactly. Right. But because I can't, if I could sit in smoke and farm with this thing, I'd probably, as I play DDs, because I'd be happier with it. It's not. Okay, you can say, well, if I stretch that range out to 15, well, if you put range in slot 6, which would be insane, then your range would be what, 16, 17 or something with it. And so could you then drive around in it like it's a Kaba or a Delny or something and try to do long distance like gunnery with it? I don't know. It just doesn't ever feel fast enough, and the thing is so big that doing open water hot rod gunboating in it always to me feels like something that's going to get you shot up.
It does get you shot up. I can say from experience. So I like using a little bit of range and the end of an island, right? So if you can find an island that kind of tapers down slowly, if you can use a little bit of range, be behind that island and slam some stuff into people, it's got to be a low island, right? But because you've got range, because you've got ballistics, if you've got spotting, you can do that stuff. You can certainly push in certain situations. But one thing that the Ragnar, she's got a lot of hit points. She's got a hull repair. She's got a radar. But you can't just throw it into any scenario and expect it to come out unscathed on the other end, right? It's just not going to survive if you do stupid things with it. Do stupid things, get stupid prizes, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so from my point of view, I think my closing thought on it is that it's a ship. It's a ship that has probably a higher skill floor. But it also probably has like a pretty high skill ceiling, because obviously like really good players really exploit this boat and get a lot out of it.
And that's definitely, I think, a nice takeaway on this boat. I think it's really rewarding if you spend the time to understand what it's doing and you get comfortable with it. It's taken me more battles than I care to admit to even become medium in the Ragnar. I'm a pretty medium player, right? Just for anybody who's new to the channel or
we both are. We're both average. We're both average bears. So.
Yeah, pretty medium. Average bears is a good phrase for it. And so I'm getting better with it, but it's taken me some time, right? And I think if you're willing to invest the time, you'll be rewarded. And like you said, you're like, it's not on my list. I'm not interested because it doesn't feel like your flavor. And that's obviously perfectly fine. You don't have to go get all the boats that people play in COTS in order to enjoy yourself playing World of Warships. So go get boats that are fun for you. But if what this boat sounds fun, the ability to machine gun stuff with 150s from range and then occasionally hit the turbo booster and zip around at 50 knots almost, and then slow way down to 37 knots. Then go get it. It's awesome for that.
Yeah, at this time for me, there's 3 steel ships I at current do not have. This would be the last one I would buy if they never put another steel ship out.
If this was it, right?
This would be the third of 3 that I don't have just because it doesn't really do anything for me. But that's, again, that different votes for different strokes and folks.
There's some sort of a phrase in there. We got a couple of comments here. Dutch Eagle and Flyer says, and also if you kind of like that sort of playstyle, you can try the Orkan out at tier 8. Orkan is similar, but obviously not the same as a Ragnar. Obviously, it's 2 tiers down. It's a very different boat, but it's got radar like Ragnar with a similar range. It's got, I think, a 5-second base reload, and its guns are smaller. They're not 150s, but you can kind of get some of that experience in Orkan for sure.
You want my comparison pick if you want to play a ship like, so you're talking 2 turrets, 2 barrels each. You're talking pretty big. Not fast, not the fastest ship, right? Okay. You're talking has a heel.
Okay.
Has a radar. Get yourself a Tiger 59.
And on that note, I think we're gonna move on to new ships just before the tomatoes start landing up on the stage. Although I will say, Minister says another weakness of Ragnar is submarines. They can really mess up your day, and you can't radar them right when they're at periscope depth or below, right? And that's
Ragnar ASW's forward launching hedgehogs, right?
It does launch them off the bow,
yeah. That's another thing people have to get used to on maybe like 6 or 8 ships in the game. That always surprises people if they play one like that way.
Yeah, so be aware of that if you decide to pick it up. But let's roll on. And it's been a little while since I think I've seen you take the helm of the Roosevelt. But do you want to kind of give us a bit of a rundown on the steel carrier? Know all about it?
The Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Alterna Midway, a Midway class carrier, real ship. The ship was real. The planes on this ship were not. They might have, the U.S. Navy may have had like a few of these planes, but they were not a real plane that was deployed anywhere ever.
Yeah.
So Roosevelt's the only steel carrier. It's been in game now for, probably a couple years. Roosevelt's claim to fame is that it has these huge squadrons of these very, very tanky planes that aren't very fast, but you can just drive through flat clouds and you still get drops. Eventually you can get deplaned if you're just terrible, but its planes are very tough. It has rocket planes, normal attack aircraft that launch a insane number of HE rockets. It has torpedo bombers that even though when you go up in a flight, like if you launch torpedo bombers, you go up with like 14 planes, and you could get in theory 7 drops or something. And it's each drop is only 2 of the planes from the flight. But when you go torpedo bombers or rockets or whatever, it's always 2 planes. The 2 planes that drop torpedoes drop 8 torpedoes. It's a fan of torpedoes. It used to be a tighter grouping, but they did nerf this ship a little bit in the torpedo department. I remember you used to be able to drop like a Kurfürst or a Yamato and land all 8, lace all 8 into it. Now it's mostly 7. It's harder to get all 8 just because of the variation on the way they fanned them. And the torpedoes hit hard, and it does a dumb amount of damage. And then the bombers drop a wad of HE bombs, more like kind of British style. It's not like Midway, because it's more like a flight. Or if you've used the bomber, like the HE bombers on Hornet, maybe it feels more like that. The detriments to that are that like the refractory period after you've done a drop is really long. It's like 20 seconds or something, right? So you do a drop and your planes are slow. You get back to your wing that's flying overhead. You're still probably at that point in the close or medium range AA bubble. And then you've got this long count that you really need to fly away before, you're flying away for a while before you turn around and come back to do it again. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what limits its DPS, right? Because it can't just turn and drop and turn and drop. It has these really long cooldowns between drops.
I wanted to jump in. You mentioned how healthy the planes were, and I was like, how healthy are they? So I looked it up real quick. So just real quick, Midway torpedo bombers have 2,040 hit points, according to, I'm using shiptool.st. It's a great website. You should check it out if you don't know it. 2,040 hit points. Hakuryu's torpedo bombers, 1,820 hit points. FDR's torpedo bombers have 3,505 hit points. So it's 1,500 more hit points than Midway. In other words, 75% more health, and basically double the health of a Hakuryu torpedo bomber. You talked about the squadron being 14 airplanes, which drop in pairs of 2, 4 torpedoes per plane, as you said, 8 torpedoes. Midway is 9 airplanes that drop 2 torpedoes. I don't know how many is in a drop squadron. Is it
Midway?
It might be 3s.
Yeah, Midway puts out 6.
Yeah, so it's 6 torpedoes, 3 planes. Yep. And then Hakuryu is 2 planes dropping 1 torpedo each, right? So, that area of water you can threaten with 8 torpedoes is pretty punchy. Now the damage is lower. It's 4,200 damage on those torp bombers versus 5,000, just over 5,000 in Midway, and 9,000 in Hakuryu. But the difference is you're putting a lot of torpedoes out, so your chances of getting any hits is higher, even if your shot is less well aimed. Whereas on Hakuryu, it's more of a skill shot, right? You're really trying to get in tight and hit harder with fewer torps that are going to do more damage. But that health of those airplanes really surprised me, even though I knew they were tanky airplanes. My goodness.
Yeah, and another thing you got to think of with those torpedoes specifically too, you put down so many of them. So if you drop a battleship and you actually land, 6, 7 of those torpedoes, that's that many chances at a flood as well. And so every one of those torpedoes has a 33. Every one of those torpedoes has a 33% flood chance, unmolested, unmodified. And so every one of those that hits, you have a chance of getting a flood. And so while it's a huge drop, and you're not, I'm not saying you're going to get multiple floods or whatever, but if you get a flood, you're more than likely in a drop to get a flood, probably just because you're getting so many hits that they're going to have to damage that. And then when you come back around, by the time you come back around, their damage control is probably expired because it takes so long to come back around. And then if you get a flood, it's just going to run. And that's a powerful way to stack damage on it.
Yeah, it really is. But those planes, and I remember when this first came out, we talked about this. It came out during a clan battle season, and they allowed aircraft carriers that clan battle season, or maybe it came out before that season. I can't remember exactly the timing, but it was available. And then a season that happened at some point after that had aircraft carriers in it. And I was playing Destroyer that season, and it was difficult to deal with this guy. The planes weren't fast. We talked about the speed, I think, already, but you just couldn't stop them from spotting you because they were so durable. And your AA, even if you took a Holland or something, was just trying to chew through what is effectively 175% of the health of a Midway plane, right? And you just couldn't do anything about it. And it wasn't that the carrier was killing you necessarily, it's that you were just lit up all the time. And so the ability to sustain a destroyer spot in this ship is really high, and I'm speaking about kind of like you did in the last one. I don't have this ship today, but to play against the FDR feels like that, man.
What you're describing, obviously we haven't had carriers in competitive now forever, and this ship is a reason. You think they talk a lot about how they balance the ships for randoms, and so while these planes are really tanky, early in game, if you're flying into multiple ships on the other team, it's a problem. In a competitive match where there are 7 adversaries and you're going after that DD, there might be only 1 or 2 guys shooting at those planes, and they just don't go away.
They don't.
And that puts you in the situation you're in. Well, maybe you're not taking damage from the rockets or the torpedoes or whatever. It's just the planes are ever present, and it's in a random, it's different. And there's a lot of great AA cruisers. I know folks bang on AA, but there are a lot of great AA cruisers and stuff at tier 10, which are effectively going to chew these planes down. You only get so many of these on deck. You do. If you play poorly, you will, run through planes on these and have limping, weak squadrons, and the reload or the regen time on these planes isn't short. So
that
it's
makes
not
sense with them being as healthy as they are, right?
It's not the most invulnerable thing in the world, but I don't play it that often. I got it during, I think myself and another clan member got it during that clan season, and so we could take it out and have be like, well, neither of us were CV players, but we're like, at least we have one of these things, and I don't play it a ton. I think, in fact, I don't remember the last time I played it. I remember one time, not recently, too long ago on stream, I was playing Malta, and a guy in FDR intentionally flew the border. Yeah. Remember that? He launched his torp planes. He flew the entire border. It took him 5 odd minutes of the match to come all the way around the map to drop me with the torp planes and kill my Malta. And he was like, yeah, I got rid of you, Malta. Bar, bar, bar. We won that match because the guy wasted all this time flying around forever.
It was a hard fought match, I'll have you know.
I got maybe 1 or 2 bomb drops off. I knew he was doing it. I was moving my ship. I tried dropping fighters, but again, they're super powerful. And he was able to come strike my CV that way and give me the business.
By the way, we're not encouraging that behavior.
No, I don't care if you do that. It's if you're the other 11 guys on the team and the other CV spends all that time at the beginning of the match to go up to the CV, fine. Like, whatever.
That's not something that your team is going to be usually very happy about unless you kill that CV immediately, early in the match.
Yeah, but anyhow, so but I don't know what else. If you're a CV main and you need a steel carrier,
the steel ship. Yeah, it's the only choice.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So that's your FDR. I think we have a pretty similar conversation about this ship most of the time. I showed the ship on stream there. I think it's a really pretty boat. In fact, I'll put it up here again real quick.
It's a real ship. A lot of these ships
aren't, which is cool.
A lot of these steel ships were not real. This was a real ship. This is a midway class carrier. I think it was commissioned right before the end of World War II, or maybe like right after, and it was probably refit pretty quickly for the jet age, and it was in service for quite a long time. Midway and FDR, I think was the America one of those, or was the America the next class? I can't remember, but those carriers were in service probably like up to the Vietnam conflict. This FDR definitely was involved in the Korean conflict for the United States in real life, so it's a real ship, has real history, just not these planes. The whatever it is, BD-8 Sky Pirate is like a prototype that was never real, because the jet age occurred, and so it was something that wasn't necessarily needed.
Rick, you said Coral Sea. Is that the name of a ship, or is that the name of a battle? I know there's a battle of a Coral Sea, but I'm not sure what you're responding to in there. I feel like if it was a ship, I would have heard of it, but maybe not. I don't know everything. CV-43, the Coral Sea. Cool, thanks.
The
Thanks,
other
Rick.
midway class.
That. Yep. Okay, great. Well, that's our FDR chat. Again, cool. We like real steel ships, even if they're the FDR and they're destroying my fun in clan battles. So we'll allow that to be a thing. Next up, I want to talk about the Z42, and I think this is something... I can't remember. Did you pick this one up or no?
No.
Okay. I did. And I don't want to be like, this ship is bad, but this ship and I don't get along, right? I knew I wasn't going to like it that much, but I got it anyway. So Z42... was last time we did this discussion, it was about to come out, and we did some speculation. We talked about, how it was listed on the dev blog, and we kind of wondered some things. And of course, now the ship is out. And the first thing I just want to get out and talk about was that I was surprised, but not totally surprised, to see this thing in COTS. I think Z42 was, and I didn't watch all of COTS, so if some of you guys are avid COTS people, please, let me know if you know a little bit more about this. I'd love to have your thoughts. But we saw some Z42s in COTS. I don't think it was anybody's immediate top ship pick, but we found with bans and things happening that it was starting to make some time out there in competitive modes. Z42 has a really good hydroacoustics module. It's got great DPM, and I do think that in coordinated play, you can do a lot of great things with Z42. She's got a series of shorter smokes that make her able to kind of smoke up and escape from danger, which is kind of a cool thing. Let me pull it up here, and I'll show you guys some pictures of it, because I do have this one.
United Kingdom style smokes, or British style smokes.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to go find out how short they were. I wanted to make sure that was true, but I think you're right. And so as a result of that, you don't get long periods of being able to sit in your smoke, right, for like a long time. And so for anybody who's like, oh, cool, it's a German Haragumo. Well, kinda, but not really exactly. Let me switch over to this window. So if we take a look at her smokes, they're 40-second smokes, but you get 6 of them. So these are breaking contact. They're allowing you to escape, maybe come back after you've gotten away from danger, that kind of a thing. 10 guns, 105 millimeters, very, very, very small guns, right? These are the guns that are the same caliber as the ones Well, I was about to say on T-22, I don't think that's correct. I think these are like secondaries off of one of the battleships. 4-second reload time, and as I've built it here, the AP I think does the AP have improved angles? Let's find out. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. Z42, no, it's got 45 to 60 degree angles, which is standard. And then it does have a shorter fuse time, 0.01 seconds instead of 0.033, which is like the base number. So it's shorter, but not the shortest. It's not 0.005 like Plymouth's AP. That's kind of like the basic rundown on Z42. She's got torpedoes that were a little bit different in test originally, but they ended up with 10-kilometer torpedoes on there that goes 62 knots. There are 2 launchers. They're not big damage torps. 13,700 is a very common damage number for German destroyers. And so it's got a very basic set of torpedoes, but when you have those, you should be launching them. My experience is that you should just be putting those in the water as often as you can. They reload in about 100 seconds. So I don't know. That's kind of my rundown, my basic rundown of Z42. You've fought against these things since they've come out. You got any thoughts maybe from that angle that's worth mentioning on this thing?
When did this ship came out? Probably right around the time of the last coupon, didn't it?
I think so, which is why I bought it.
So that's probably the last time I remember fighting against one. I don't feel like I see it ever.
That's actually an interesting comment all by
itself.
itself.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just don't feel like, and I play a lot. Parts of the month I play a lot. Lately, I've played a lot of destroyers in tiers that you would run into tier 10 destroyers. I don't feel like I've seen one of these in a long time.
It's true.
But that just luck of the draw, right? You know, so I don't know. I don't know if people are waiting for the coupon to reset.
You know, that could
maybe all the wearaboos had to have it got it. This is a ship. This is a ship that was announced and looked really spicy. Yeah, on paper, and then when it was released, you know, a lot of the German ship fans were probably excited to get it. I just don't feel like I play against them a ton, honestly.
I think that's totally true.
Stats wise, what you said's pretty accurate. I'm looking at it on Ship Tool. I think the hydro might be the best thing about it. That 6 km hydro is pretty great. The torpedoes are, what's the torpedo reload? I don't know. Is it any good?
100 seconds or so. So it's not particularly fast, but
nothing special. And thankfully, they don't do any damage. So there's nothing to write home about there. The HE is.
Tell me how you really feel.
I'm just looking at the stats on it. The HE on it.
You're right, though. They are pretty medium torpedoes. They're not particularly impressive in any attribute.
Looking at the armory too, right? So here's you folks. The Wargaming has done this great thing in the last year or so where they've added. Interesting information about these ships for you to learn about. The main battery
that they put
there. Main battery has AP shells that deal great damage per salvo, high damage APM shells, high DPM AP shells, and then they tell you HE shells with high armor pen. Well, sure, they're German, so every German HE shell has what the German quarter pen. Normally HE shells have 1/6 pen. German HE shells have quarter pen or 1/4 pen, so they pen more. That means that these 100 millimeter HE shells on this ship penetrate 26 millimeters. That's pretty good. Like, let you pen most DDs. Not a Ragnar, right? Not a not the weather stripping on a Kaba or anything that's that's got thicker armor on a DD, but you're going to get full HE pens. Unfortunately, if you do, the shells don't do any damage. They do like 1,200 damage. So you got to get a lot of them downfield. And there's a bunch of guns on this thing, so I reckon it can do that. It's got a pretty quick reload, right? Where's the reload on here? I can't see. Anyway, I think it's got a fast reload. But the next bullet point Wargaming gives you is that it has low HE shell damage, which I think is an understatement. I don't think the HE shells on it are performant.
I was muted. I apologize. I was answering your question. The reload is 4 seconds, at least in my build, right?
That's pretty good.
10 guns, 4-second reload. That works really good.
Got a lot of guns. So I think you look at it and it's a Z42. So there's also like the Z44 that's like that same like hull or whatever, right? And that's a torpedo boat that everybody hates because it doesn't have hydro. And then there's I think when we talked about this ship last time, I said if you're looking for a comparison, it's the tier 8 premium Z35, which has good hydros and short British smokes and relatively wonky torps. Z35's torps are only 6 kilometers, but and it has a bunch of rat-a-tat guns that are.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger, and it's got a 3.5-second reload, but it doesn't have as many guns. So the DPM on Z42 is actually really great. Sorry,
I think the DPM. I think the AP DPM is really great.
Yeah, the HE is probably not particularly
the HE DPM is like 160K, which doesn't seem great. The AP DPM is 306K, but again, because like you pointed out, there's no improved angles on it. You know, if you know where to land, if you know where to put your AP in a destroyer, if you're a destroyer player that actually uses your AP, which you should, and you put this AP into the upper belt on battleships or the superstructure or you know, places. You gotta remember it's 100mm, and it's not like Haragumo or Kitakame where they juice those guns that are that small to be better.
Right.
It has some baked-in improvements. It looks like from the stuff here, but I don't know. Looking at it, I think the best thing might be the hydros. It might be pretty good at like jumping a German style, but I have this tech tree one called the Z52 that I'd have to spend steel for. And it has similar hydros.
It has 128mm gun.
It has guns that I think might be a little bit more performant, and torpedoes that actually might be more performant. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll kind of. I think I've had a couple of comments over here that I think are worth addressing, and you've said a couple of things that kind of inspired some thought too. So first of all, on the AP DPM, it's 307,000. That number doesn't mean anything unless we compare it against boats that we know. That's third best of all the tier 10 destroyers. The only ones that are better for AP DPM are Haragumo and Marceau. But its HE DPM is 160,000. 160,000 is supremely in the middle. It is literally not literally in the middle, but it's really close. It's the 13th destroyer out of a list of 24 for HE DPM, right? So we know we're supposed to use the AP guns or the AP shells. We talked about the shell fuse time is shorter. It's not the shortest, but it's shorter. And so you've got the ability to punch up. And what that means, what that helps you do is punching and actually getting pen damage on lightly armored targets like destroyers. And so you would naturally be thinking this is a destroyer fighter. And I think for a lot of players it is. Brand has a comment in here that I see you've laughed at. It says, if you do everything right, things will go fine. And that is 100% true with this ship. And then I want to roll up a little bit, and Blackadder has a couple of comments. It sounds, based on what I'm reading here, Blackadder's kind of a Z42 fan, at least a little bit, and says, that it's a fun ship if you know what you're doing. One problem it has, I'm kind of combining a couple of Blackadder's comments here. One problem it has is the low hit points pool paired with that German DD hull. And it does have a very limited hit point pool, which is one of the problems that I have with it. If I try to do the thing that is go contest a destroyer in a cap, and something like Brand says doesn't go right, and I have the low hit point pool of Z42, it's a tough day. But I think if you can position yourself well, if you can wait and choose the right engagements, if you can find the right targets, and if you do the right things in the right order, this thing can be absolutely devastating to an enemy destroyer. So I think there's a skill floor there, or there's a self-control floor, if you will, where you've got to really do the right things while you're running Z42. And there's a very narrow recipe for engagements that it can be literally, I won't say literally the best, but I'll say quite good at doing. But some of the general purpose things that it's supposed to do, it struggles with, right? And what's the concealment on this boat? 6.2 as I've built it, which is not great.
Ooh,
so it's a good thing you have smokes that last 40 seconds. But like you say, the hydros, if you can take advantage of some of that stuff, and maybe collaborate with a more stealthy destroyer or a cruiser with radar, I think you can do a lot of stuff there. Sorry, you can now get excited about the hilarious concealment.
When you say it's not a great concealment, but you've got 40-second smokes. Yeah, outstanding.
It's tough.
I don't know.
It can be tough, but as Blackadder says, you can be really effective in it too. So it's a tough one for me.
It certainly has amazing HE or AP DPM, and like you said, it's 15th of the tier 10s.
Yeah, it's kind of middle of the road there for HE
DPM. So to give you a concept there, if you're just talking, and just talking about HE DPM is kind of like, well, that only really matters like in a training room, right? But
the artificial of those numbers.
The ship that's one better than it in HE DPM is the renowned gunboat, the Yu Yang. Everybody, the feared Yu Yang.
It's a peer to Yu Yang.
Yeah. There's boats that people don't necessarily like a lot, like Hyate. Rigolo's HE DPM is better, And yeah, there's some weird, there's some stuff ahead of it. Stuff that it beats in HEDPM, Elbing.
Which most do.
Beats Druid.
Druid doesn't have HE.
Beats Shimakaze. You'd be surprised. You might be surprised it beats Delny and Kleber in HEDPM because Delny's weird and Kleber is their number. Its numbers are wonked unless you're running the main battery reload booster. So, and it does beat Z52 in AP and HEDPM.
It
right?
does.
But Z52's. I feel like Z52 might be a little more well-rounded because I feel like its torpedo package actually might, bring more to the table. But
and Z42 is pretty, like I said, it's pretty focused. Blackadder says those fast smokes are the main thing that make it a little bit more viable than Z52. And you mentioned Druid. One of the comments I made in our recent Research Bureau video, or the same discussion but for Research Bureau ships, was about Druid and how I like the short smokes on Druid because it makes the gameplay really dynamic, right? You pop one of those short smokes, you move to a new location, you farm. Then when you get spotted, you pop another smoke and you can escape. And you can do that same thing in Z42. Druid has a heal, which lets potatoes like me who take damage recover from making a mistake. Z42 doesn't, right? So that is one of those things where you have to be a little bit more perfect when you're utilizing those smokes. If you want to live to where you can use all 6 of those, you're going to have to be paying a lot of attention. So your alertness needs to be high. But we talk about those short smokes like they're a bad thing in some lights, but in other lights they're a really strong capability. And I think that's important to note as well.
I think I don't know. I don't have WoW numbers up. I'm not looking at like actual like server stats for this boat.
Yeah.
Like I said though, I just don't feel like I see it that often. I know that because it's steel and it's relatively new.
Yeah.
Right. And so they just take longer to proliferate. But I feel like everybody that like had to have it
has it
that got it.
Yeah.
If they're playing it, it's just not when I'm dropping DDs or not when I'm in tier 10s. I just don't feel like I see it often.
Yeah, I don't know that I think it's taken the world by storm and it's the new must-have steel boat. It did not develop the reputation that Ragnar had. Now, I do want to throw something out here. Now, earlier you said Ragnar is the last ship on my list if I'm getting steel boats. So that tells me that Z42, you'd get Z42 over Ragnar maybe?
Yeah, I mean, just mechanically playstyle wise, this has torpedoes that I just don't like not having torps at all.
Yeah.
I don't expect that this is a torpedo boat, but this boat at least is more, I know this would really probably is considered a gunboat, but at least it's more of it offers both options. And I do think that the 6-kilometer hydro that runs forever is almost more useful than a 7.5-kilometer radar that runs forever, but not nearly as forever, right? So I think there's things of this boat that are interesting, but yeah, out of the 3 steel ships that I don't currently have, if there were no more steel ships put into the game ever, this would not be the first one on my list to get. This would be the second after Ragnar, which would be the third.
Yeah. I think if I were looking at these two to kind of, this is the first time in steel ship history that we've had to make a decision between 2 ships, right? So if you're a DD player, 2 destroyers specifically. So if you're a DD player and you're like, man, which one of these 2 ships should I get? I think that's a question that players are going to have. For me, I would probably get Ragnar first, and I did, but that was because Ragnar came out first. I had it before this boat came out, but I think I would still get Ragnar first, just because of those big 150s are a real blast for me, and I'm content enough in a ship that doesn't have concealment or smoke as long as I've got a heal. That said, I think I like that we kind of had a split opinion on this, that you prefer this to Ragnar in terms of what you're reading on the page there, and that you'd lean that direction. So I think there's definitely a couple of different ways to skin the cat here of which destroyer should I get with my steel.
Yeah, and again, this ship hasn't been available for maybe 5 months at this point. I can't remember if it came out before Christmas or after, but in that time frame. Right now on NA.
Yeah, I think it was right around or after Christmas-ish.
Yeah, right now in NA on WoW's numbers, they've only logged 15,000 matches or 15,600, but
short time, difficult currency.
Well, that could be wrong though, because the problem with the API that existed, pretty much everything that came out pretty much everything that came out in the fall into the winter wasn't in WoW's numbers. I don't know if this ship was or not. Some ships weren't, like the black ships and things like that.
So those numbers could be a little false.
Yeah, and if that number is since the API got updated, that seems like a massive amount of people are playing it in that short period of time. So hard to say.
And it's difficult there, because I think some of the numbers Wargaming was recording them on the back end, they just weren't available in the API. So maybe that is corrected and that does include everything. It's a little sus, right? We're not 100% sure.
If you just take what's captured, it's just steel ships, so it's harder to get. Tromp, I feel like, came out in the same time frame.
Very similar. It was like a November release, I think.
Yeah, and Tromp's a coal ship, so way more accessible. It has 80,000 matches, and Z42 again only has like 15 and a half. So it's definitely like, just counting those matches, it's not out there as much. It's the actually lowest count of battles for any, tier 10 DD. The next closest is Delny at 41,000 battles on NA. Bazan at 55, right? And Bazan has been out a little longer than Tromp. So that's probably explains why I don't feel like I've seen it a lot.
I'm surprised Bazan has more games than Delny. That's not really the topic of today's discussion. I'm just interested in that. That's surprising.
15,000 more.
Because I feel like we don't see Bazans that often either. But
yeah,
we'll talk about that. We're doing coal ships here in the near future as well, guys. So if you're interested in a coal ship conversation, stay tuned to the channel. And as I said earlier, this will all wind up on YouTube as well. But okay, cool, man. Well, I think that wraps up this page. We've talked about aircraft carriers and destroyers that are available for steel. And so we'll go on to our next screen here. CAs and CLs. We have 4 of these available for steel. Skada, you can see them on the screen there. Do you want to pick one off the shelf and maybe start us off talking about cruisers?
Let's start with the original, the Stalingrad, the old grandfather of steel ships. I mean, Stalingrad's, was it the first steel ship? I mean, or was Summers? I don't know, but Stalingrad's been around forever.
I think it was Stalingrad, then Summers. I remember when Stalingrad came out, man, we were so afraid of them. We'd log into a battle. Oh, it's a steel boat. We're going to die.
Yeah, Stalingrad, I don't know what you say about Stalingrad other than it's still here. It's a giant Russian mega cruiser. It probably doesn't have the battle impact that it once did due to changes to just how the game mechanics work. But Stalingrad's a lot of fun. I think it was maybe the second steel boat that I bought, and the guns, they don't disappoint. The claim to fame is the main battery on this ship, and it's amazing. You point and click, and you Citadel things. The AP is devastating. The guns are very large for a cruiser, obviously. And even at long ranges, you can Citadel battleships with it because of the stellinium shells and all the jokes that people make on the YouTubes and places that you get your memes for World of Warships, right? This is like one of the OGs
the originator.
For that. It really is.
The muse, if you will.
It's also got Soviet radar, like a 12-kilometer radar package. I don't believe you can equip hydros on it. Can you? I don't think so.
I'll pull it up here.
It's
I should
defensive
be
AA radars and a heel. But really, it's tanky. Maybe not as tanky as it once was because you do take 60-second fires on it, like some of the other large cruisers, and you cannot mitigate those like you used to be able to when your captain was allowed to do that on cruisers. But again, it's a lot of fun. It's a big cruiser. It's not, it's crept like everything that has any age on it in World of Warships, but it's still a lot of fun, and you do still see people play them in competitive modes, just because the main battery is so powerful.
Yeah, and speaking about that main battery, we'll take a quick peek here. So I pulled it up, and I used Ship Tool. I filtered by every ship in World of Warships, and I sorted by Sigma, right? So you talked about the accuracy and the punch of these battleships. Sigma on Stalingrad is 2.65, right? That number feels like a bug, like a joke. Because when we look at a really, really accurate cruiser, it tends to be 2 or 2.05. So Stalingrad Sigma is 2.65. The next best cruiser is Puerto Rico at 2.2. In fact, I should say the next best ship in World of Warships is Puerto Rico with a 2.2. When you look at horizontal dispersion, Stalingrad's guns are 31 meters better than the next best ship, which is actually, hang on, let me make sure that's true. I don't think that's true. I should say than Puerto Rico. Like if we stayed on the Puerto Rico comparison, it's 31 meters better on the horizontal dispersion. And then the vertical dispersion is like almost 20 meters better. So like it's got a smaller ellipse than Puerto Rico, and it's got a much better sigma. Sigma is a number they use in a math formula that determines how likely your ships are to land in the center of your dispersion ellipse. Exactly how it's calculated and stuff, I'm not an expert on that. But basically, the ellipse, the smaller it is, the more accurate your shells are in general, and then the higher your sigma is, the more likely they're going to land in the middle of that ellipse. So Stalingrad is better than Puerto Rico in all of those attributes aggressively. Like those guns are so good. And when we talk about the flight time as well, it's 1.3 or 1.2 to 1.3 seconds better than Puerto Rico at 12 kilometers. And of course, that's going to scale up and down with range. So we talk about these guns. They're just absurd. Very accurate, very punchy. 305 millimeter guns. So you're going to punch through a lot of different types of armor. If we go to looking at the AP pen, which I think is worth discussing, you're going to do a lot of AP shooting with this ship. AP penetration is 545 millimeters. It is the top ship of all tier 10 cruisers, followed by Sevastopol, which 535. Then it drops off to Petropavlovsk at 490. And then finally we get a ship that's not from the Soviet Union with Marseille at 460, which is not quite 100 millimeters worse than Stalingrad, but you know, it's 75, 85, something like that. So it's the most punchy cruiser you can get at tier 10. And for those reasons, like you said, Skada, it still shows up in competitive, it still shows up in randoms and makes a mess of somebody's day. Really strong ship in terms of main battery, and that really is her claim to fame.
Yeah, when you're talking about the AP on that, this is a ship that actually is old enough that the shell characteristics are slightly different between HE and AP. The HE shells are actually they have a little more drag, surprisingly. Not enough you'd probably notice, but base range on Stalingrad is like 20 and a half. It shoots really far, right? And so we were just talking about Ragnar, and at its range, as you built it, maybe shooting 15 kilometers, how the shell travel time was 10.4 seconds. Stalingrad shells at maximum range, the AP shells, that flight time is 10.1 seconds. So the shells are fast
quick.
movers. They come out of the barrel. They come out of the barrel at 950 meters per second, and there's very little drag on the shells. At max range like that, the armor pen is still 415 millimeters, and that's why I'm saying, like, when you're firing this when you're playing 10s in this, if you see an Iowa broadside at 16 kilometers, let it rip. You're probably going to citadel it. And it's nuts with these guns, even at the size. The 305 part, kind of irrelevant because these guns are just kind of mystically silly. Like you said, Sevastopol is the next closest ship, and it's got 380s off of a battleship.
Yeah.
And it's got 15-inch guns. So again, these guns are just cartoon silly. It's a lot of fun. Right. This is a good ship. I guess if you were looking for downsides to it, to me, it would be how it takes 60-second fires now.
Yes, sir.
And no hydros, but okay. And so and it's a little bit lumbering. It's
it's a big old ship, right? It's huge.
You kind of gotta move it around with intent. But it's one of those ships. I find when I play it, I know people, it's a radar cruiser, so you need to get up and press caps, and good players who use it would do that. I actually find that I play it in a way similar to how I play my Slava, where I'm hanging back at those longer ranges with it, angling away and using that AP to punish broadsides because it works that way just perfectly well.
And it's funny that it works a lot of ways, right? I mean, you just described a non-hunker down on an island and be an immovable object thing, which totally functions, right? I mean, obviously hunkering down on an island puts you at risk of those fires you've been talking about, which I think is a weakness of this ship. I remember when it first came out, I said earlier, we were all intimidated. Oh my gosh, we keep getting blapped by by Stalingrad's from across the map. Well, first of all, when it first comes out, the people who are going to get it are Uber Chads, who are going to come out there and really, really give you the what for with their new Stalingrad. And then the other thing that happened, of course, is that, of course, it has these amazing guns. It can punch, it can do all that stuff. I'm looking at the ricochet angles, which I didn't even realize were improved. So today I learned the ricochet angles are 55 to 65 instead of the standard 45 to 60. Which means that you can get more pens at more angles that would be less possible with other guns, and so you can kind of pen from more angles. You can punch really hard, and I remember at the time one of our buddies said the good thing about a Stalingrad is it burns just as good as any other ship, and these days it actually burns more. You know, with the changes they've made to some of the fire mechanics and stuff over the years.
I think its fuse time is slightly improved as well. It's not like it's British good, but it's
instead of 33.
It's and so like you can put these AP shells into stuff and they're less likely. Even at those velocities, you'd probably think I'm going to get a bunch of overpens, but these guns are fake, so you don't. Like it's just This ship is still really good. I don't know if I still would say, like, when people ask, like, is this the first steel ship to get? I don't know if I would say that. I don't know that we even really necessarily care. Get what you think would be fun, but this ship isn't. Absolutely. This ship, while old, is still very much fun and good to play and very usable, very fun in randoms, good and still gets used in competitive modes.
Yeah. Real quick, thank you for the follows to Rojik and Agar the Hut as well. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the channel. And then we have a special guest here, Just Cheg. Just Cheg's been trying to get on my YouTube channel for years, and he's finally done it. How's it going, Cheg? We'll have to get you on there sometime for real.
He used to comment on YouTube videos, and we would chat with him. So he's been on the channel in a different way.
That's right. That's right. Actually, he left a comment, I think, on our Research Bureau ship video recently. So it was good to hear from Cheg that way. But Cheg, welcome to this channel. We're glad to have you. Ignore me. This is a YouTube video. Hello, YouTube. I think Stalingrad's still a worthwhile pickup. You know, like you said, I don't know if it needs to be your first ship. If you really like big, punchy Soviet cruisers, here's another one, right? Feel free to pick it on out. From here, I'll jump to I don't know if this is the opposite of the spectrum. It's not quite I think the opposite would be Vallejo, but we'll talk about Vallejo in a while. I want to jump to Plymouth, which is fairly opposite to Stalingrad. So Plymouth is a British light cruiser. She's a tier 10, similar kind of to like an Edinburgh hull, but not exactly the same. So she's very lightly armored. She's got a radar and smoke. She fires AP only and has 16 guns in 4-barrel turrets, kind of like Smolensk has 4-barrel turrets. But again, no HE on the Plymouth. She's a pretty cool looking ship. Let me bring it up here and I'll show you while we're chatting about it. Plymouth, where are you? There you go. I'm displaying mine in gray at the moment. She's very stealthy. I can't remember what is her stealth. Or her concealment. Let me bring my captain on. In my build, her concealment is 9.2 kilometers. I tend to play this ship hopping around between islands, using the smoke when I can, and using the radar to try to disturb destroyers who are getting too frisky or too close. She does have improved AP things about her. Let me find this ship here. Plymouth has 60 to 75 degree AP angles, which is even better than what we just talked about for Stalingrad, but it needs those because its guns are a lot smaller and its AP pen is only 97 millimeters. So it's really more critical for Plymouth to have that. Talked about destroyers. She's got very fast fuse times, 0.005 seconds. The number isn't really important, but just know that it is, less than a sixth of what a standard fuse time is, which means you can punch through destroyers and get debts before overpenning them, or not debts, but full pens basically before overpenning them. So I really feel like this can be a fun ship. One thing, let's talk about negatives for Plymouth. Absolutely zero armor, very low hit points. She's not going to angle and bounce anything. You're going to be in a tough spot if people catch you out. She's not particularly fast as well. 33 knots for a cruiser at tier 10 isn't gonna race any other ship and win. And so I find Plymouth to be a lot of fun. She has a bad reputation of being considered to be somewhat underpowered by the community, and I think that might be true. She is not necessarily, you know, she's not gonna like be showing up in competitive and things like that in the same way that some of these other ships might. But I do think that Plymouth is a lot of fun, and for those who really enjoy a light cruiser, I think she's a blast. Now, is Plymouth the third ship that you haven't picked up? We talked about this, and
No.
I've already forgotten.
No, Plymouth is the last one I got. I got
okay. It's more
last
recently.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of Plymouth?
Oh, I like it a lot. We had I was thinking, you know, I think when I got it was around the time that you got Brisbane, and we had a lot of fun doing 2-man work with Plymouth and Brisbane, where because you didn't have smoke, I would smoke you, and we
I
would
remember these games now.
And we both had radar, and we had a couple of really fun games that way. I think maybe one stinker, but it's a fun ship to do those kind of things in. The guns are great. I held off on getting it. It was the ship I was going to get like 2 steel ships ago, and then I didn't because I didn't realize it only had AP. And then last time it was time to get a steel ship again, it would have been between Ragnar, Z42, this, and Vallejo, and then I picked this up. So I like the ship a lot. It was the last ship in my weird hard consumable British cruiser collection after Gibraltar, which I'd gotten before this.
Yeah.
But this ship's a ton of fun for what it is. It's just kind of quirky and weird. The torps are good. The smoke is good. You know, it's not fast. Like you said, it's slow, but it has British cruiser acceleration, so you can get out of your own way really quick, which is always nice when you're in these when you're in the British ships and you hammer down because you need to move. It moves and people miss shots because of that.
That's true. Yeah.
And then it's got radar and hydros and these guns. You use 16 guns with a relatively good reload. That just, even though it's super short fuse British AP, that just annihilates destroyers, annihilates cruisers, and works really good for farming on upper parts of battleships. So I like this ship. I haven't played it a ton since I got it. We had fun with it when I got it because that was around, like you said, when Brisbane came out, and we played around with both of those ships. And and I know you've had Plymouth for quite a while. I know you've even used it in clans with us.
I shouldn't have done that, but it was fun.
Yeah, but we always have that one match we remember where like a Yamato tried to sneak up on you and you torped out a Yamato with it.
I torped him and I citadeled him.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
So yeah, I like this ship. It's a fun ship. It's not for everybody, but you'll find that with pretty much all these ships, right? There's only, out of all these steel ships, I actually really think there's only like 1 or 2 that I would say are for everybody. And this one isn't, but I think this is a fun ship, and it's an interesting variation on the theme of the British light cruiser line. It's different than Minotaur, in that you have smoke and radar at the same time, and you just don't have as fast a reload on the mains, and the ship's built a little differently. It also doesn't have the monster heal. It has a heal, but it doesn't have the monster heal.
Yeah, that's true. We had a couple of comments in chat about the radar. So Gorshkov says the radar has a 54-second duration when fully built for it. My build is the same way, Gorshkov. It's a 9-kilometer range radar, but 54 seconds is a long effing time. So if anybody gets within that 9 kilometers and doesn't get out or can't get out, you can radar them for an extended duration. So a destroyer who's hiding behind an island, that's long enough for them to get nervous. They're going to start sweating bullets, and then they're going to do something they shouldn't do, which is try to get away, and they'll get taken if you can. We
did some filthy stuff that one match where we were in my smoke, and I used that shorter range, long duration radar to scare a destroyer or something we were fighting out, and then it broke range on my radar, and then you hit the Brisbane's 12-kilometer radar. And we're like, not so fast, my friend. Like, we're still here. We're still here, and we still see you, and you still can't see us because we're in smoke. And
pretty filthy.
So it's a fun ship. It's fun to play. It's fun if you're like a single group, but it's fun to pair with interesting combinations of other ships at tier 10 as well.
Yeah. The minister says, I think Plymouth's reload's a little long for a light cruiser, but I don't see much else wrong with it. One of the more underrated steel ships. In my build, the reload's 6.5 seconds, which I think is acceptable for something with 152s. And you talked a little bit about just the gunpowder of this thing. If you're sorting by AP DPM, it's the 7th strongest cruiser. So obviously it's behind things like Colbert, Minotaur, Smolensk, Worcester, and I guess I'll complete the list, Salem and Des Moines. But then it comes in number 7 out of 28 ships, right, for AP DPM. So there's something to be said for that. Obviously no HEs whatsoever, but with those improved angles and things, you can do quite a bit with Plymouth. And the thing you mentioned that I won't say we glossed over, but we mentioned briefly was the ability to farm battleship superstructures, where that people might look at this and say, oh, it's just for hitting light cruisers and destroyers. Absolutely not true. With the improved angles and with with that 80 or 90 millimeters of AP pen, how much is it? It's I don't have it here. I think it's 90 millimeters.
Yeah, it changes over range, but just like with Minotaur,
yeah, that's true.
It's the same kind of deal where Minotaurs farm battleships just like this, and it just looks more prolific with Minotaur because of the reload. But this has 16 guns when you're doing it, and they're pretty accurate. So if you're doing like full salvos, that's a lot of it's a good hard chunk. It's one of those ones that you get a satisfying chunk out of, where you go, yeah, that's like a 10K hit, like a 12K hit, and from a light cruiser that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about that, that's like 1 Citadel, right? Now some of that damage is going to be healable because it's going to be non-Citadel damage, right? It's going to be readily healable, specifically by ships that can heal that lighter damage. But yeah, you can chunk people every 6.5 seconds with big volumes of shells. I think Plymouth is underrated, but I understand when you're looking at this and you go, well, what about the other light cruisers that I could play, right? You could get Colbert, right? Which is, extremely light cruiser and does all that stuff. Doesn't have smoke, doesn't have torpedoes. It's a different feel than something like a Plymouth. Obviously, if you enjoy a British light cruiser, it's really easy to recommend Plymouth to you. If you don't, it's really easy to steer you towards, one of the other models we have here on the showroom floor, right? I don't think you need to go get a Plymouth if you're not enjoying your Minotaur play or your Edinburgh play or whatever.
And that's a good, good segue to the other light cruiser at tier 10 that's available for steel, the Austin.
Let's jump into it.
One thing, I'm just looking at the pricing. I don't know that I consider Austin to be 2,000 steel better. And so, you look at the pricing on the tier 10 cruisers here, and Plymouth is the cheapest, which, that adds up as well. But, Austin, the last of these tier 10 cruisers, I can't remember. I think it came out after Plymouth.
I think so.
It's it's the U.S. super light in the style of a Atlanta. Everybody's familiar with. There's a lot of proliferation of that ship with Flint and Shumfon, in different nations now. And again, like if you're familiar with the tier 10 Pan Asian cruiser, the Jinan, it's like the same ship as the Austin here. A lot of differences mechanically on how they're played, though. You have Austin as well. I know you like Austin.
I thought I was gonna hate Austin, but it's pretty fun actually.
Yeah, Austin. Austin again, really fun that it has HE and SAP. I think it was like the first U.S. ship that got SAP, and it gets it in these like just DACA rat-a-tat guns. The rate of fire is pretty insane, and then its gimmick is the never-ending font of main battery reload boosters. It has main battery reload booster, but it doesn't. They're not consumable. They don't consume. You have it for the duration of the game. It's like a thing that goes on cooldown, and then you get it back. You can't run out of them, which is crazy.
Yeah.
The ship has. It plays like an ultralight cruiser. Obviously, it does have a good repair party. It has small hit points and crummy armor, so you have to know how to position and how to angle to not just get obliterated. It's got good AA. It's relatively quick for what it is. Good rudder shift, etc. They're telling us low detection. I think for the most part is built. When you have one built out, I don't it's like most light cruisers at the tier. But this is like the ultimate, game of that Flint style or Atlanta style, where you're, the U.S. light cruiser island hopping, spraying over stuff. You use the HE and just work over things and get fires on battleships. You use the SAP to annihilate destroyers and other cruisers. Just super, super powerful little cruiser, and it's a lot of fun to play. I don't know that I've had like monster games in it since I got it, because it's a pretty pretty high skill floor in regards to how squishy it is. And you got to be careful with yourself, but it's a lot of fun. And it also, unlike something like Atlanta that has ultra short range torpedoes, it does have 10.5 kilometer torpedoes that hit pretty hard. And so you should be using those torps and chucking them in water, into alleys and gaps, places where you might be able to get, free torpedo kills with it. So pretty cool little light cruiser.
Yeah, 19,000 damage on the torps. Some of my most, I can't even figure out how to form a sentence right now. Some of the most fun I've had in Austin was in the airship escort mode that we had. Because people were trying to escort an airship, and you could come around and with one of those reload boosters just lay into people. I don't remember if it was on stream or I think it was off stream. I was playing a game with Jimbo and some people, Jimbo and maybe somebody else, I can't remember. But I just was rolling around this island, and I just machine gunned the heck out of this battleship, put him on the bottom, and I could not stop laughing. It was like Paolo Emilio style laughter, like the maniacal crazy person. This reload booster is dumb, and you might have mentioned it already, but it's a 75% reload buff, right? So your guns go from already fast at 7 seconds to whatever 75% of that is, right? So 1.8 seconds or something.
Yeah, sub 2.
It's sub 2. And so you can do that with SAP. And what's amazing is you can do it with HE as well. So if you round an island and there's 3 battleships within shooting distance and you feel like you can hit them accurately, you hit that reload booster, you can get all 3 of them on fire and then go back to the first one when you're done with the reload booster and get them on fire again. And then that fire is going to last forever. So you can like kind of, if you're in that joyous scenario, you can do that thing. Now, does that always work out? No. Sometimes you get citadeled in this thing because that'll happen, right? I was really worried about Austin, but I thought I'd give it a try just because I had some steel. And I've really had a good time in it. I don't think I have a ton of games. You can see on the screen, or you can't right now, but I've got about 70,000 XP in it. So that's about how many games I've played in Austin. Probably, 10 or 20 games or something in that window. But it's been kind of more fun than I gave it credit for, and that reload booster is an absolute hoot. So if you like a light cruiser, if you like a reload booster, it's for you. And I'm glad you mentioned the torpedoes because I forgot those. 19,000 damage, 10.5 kilometers.
Yeah, they're like a Fletcher torp, or actually I think they might be a Benham torp, but
it could be.
I don't at that range, but they're pretty good. Yeah, they don't sleep on the fact that it has torps that actually have legs. Unlike Atlanta or something, it's more like Flint in that regard. Flint has more usable torps. I think the one thing, if you're thinking light cruiser or you're thinking of U.S. cruisers, that's a bummer about it is it doesn't have radar. It does have hydros. They're kind of a U.S. style cruiser hydro. They're 5 kilometer ship detect, 3.5 kilometer torpedo detect, and now we can look at a statistic that they're only a 2 kilometer submarine detect. And they run for normal U.S. torpedo durations. AA on this ship's pretty good as well, and with defensive AA, it's pretty good at swatting planes, as you would expect with all these dual purpose crazy guns. I think it has. Does it have over the side depth charges, or does it actually have ASW planes? I don't remember.
It has over the side depth charges, so no airstrike ASW.
Yeah,
which is
so
a weakness. That sucks.
That part kind of sucks, but
and with a lot of those light cruisers, and you can see, Wargaming has said a lot of times we give light cruisers over the side depth charges. Really, what they mean there, because we got ships like Hindenburg, and I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say really what they mean, like I know, but one of the things I've observed is that a lot of those ships that have over the side depth charges.
Still here, Cheg. What do you mean?
Yeah, Cheg. Why don't you answer our question? Is that they do that for ships that have relatively rapid main battery reloads. Right, because those ships can respond to submarines in ways that don't involve depth charges with main battery when they're at periscope depth or on the surface or something. And so obviously with Austin having a relatively rapid main battery reload, lots of guns, and of course a reload booster, I'm not surprised it's got the over the sides. Blackadder had a comment too, said Austin can be tankier than you expect. It has 32 millimeter sides, which can bounce a lot of AP. If you wiggle and angle against incoming fire. I have had that experience where Austin has bounced shells I didn't think I should have been able to before. So that can be a thing that surprises you, whereas I think on something like a Plymouth, that's not going to happen. So maybe that's what they did with that extra 2,000 steel. Maybe they bolted it to the side of the ship. So
it's got a nice strip down the side. San Diego, the Tier 8 premium ship in this vein that is kind of a pocket. Austin also has an improved armor strip like that. You can angle and you can bounce some stuff. Not exactly samey, but yeah, that strip matters in regards to being able to take angles and bounce a lot of incoming fire from other cruisers like 203 cruisers and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a lot of battleship shells are going to overmatch, but then overpen, because World of Warships, light cruisers versus battleships, you T-pose and then stuff just flies through.
Right.
So yeah, cool ship though.
Yeah, cool ship though. I feel like if Cheg is here, we should have him come on and talk about Vallejo. He's such a fanboy, but I think we'll try to do our best here. So Vallejo is a ship I don't have yet. I've played it, I would say sub 5 times, less than 5 times. I had a good time playing it. Vallejo is, she's got a rapid takeoff spotter like the Lazo at tier 7. You can get Lazo for coal. Out of the armory, and it's got a rapid takeoff spotter that has basically a cooldown time of 10 seconds, and then I think it flies for 60 seconds or something. And so you can extend the main battery range of your gun. Lazo's got pretty good trajectory on its guns, and so does Vallejo. They're kind of similar in feel in that way. Vallejo's got great DPM. She's an American light cruiser with no radar, which means that, of course, people might think you have radar and you can trick them. But it doesn't have radar. It does have hydros, I believe. We'll pull the ship up here and take a look at it on the screen when I throw the mic over to Skada. But I found Vallejo to be an interesting boat for that. We don't see a lot of them played, though, Skada. Do you have any thoughts on Vallejo that you're able to share, or maybe observations for seeing that in match?
So it's kind of a proto Wooster, in that it looks like that. I think there's actually a lot of similar design language in the new Pan American cruisers, right? If you look at the 8, 9, and 10, they're all kind of variations on a Woostery theme, and I think this ship's very similar in that this was before them, but I feel like it's kind of a similar design language. Wooster guns on this, but not Wooster shells. So one of the things I would point out when you're thinking about how shells work on this, people think, well, do I want a tier 9 Wooster? Like, what do I get from that? But 15 kilometers, 15 and a half, I think is its max gun range. And as just without adding to range in slot 6, which you wouldn't, you'd take reload more than likely. Plus with those spotter planes, you don't need to. The flight time, we talked about this before. Flight time on Stalingrad was so fast. Flight time on Ragnar, similar, right? So Ragnar is a ship shooting 15 kilometers, and we said it was 10.4 seconds. This is an American light cruiser, and its flight time for shells, for HE shells at 15 kilometers, is 9.7 seconds.
Really? It's sub 10.
So yeah, yes, and that's the gimmick with this ship in regards to that.
Felt good, but I didn't know it was that good.
It's American style 152 HE that doesn't work like an American light cruiser normally would, and you have the crazy spotter plane that goes up and down very often, and when it goes up you get that extended range, and that shell velocity still persists. And so Vallejo, again, I've talked about the 3 ships I don't have. Vallejo will actually probably be the next one I buy, and I'll probably buy it with a coupon, which makes it damn near free because it's so cheap to begin with, because it's a tier 9. But I'd rather have this ship to play with than Ragnar or Z42, because I think the concept of this ship is interesting. It has no sensors at all, so you take this into a match, or you see somebody playing one, and you're thinking, oh, it's a U.S. light cruiser. Right. They're gonna probably got a 9-kilometer radar, probably got hydros on there. Nope, you got a whole bag of nothing.
I did want to correct that. Brand you got a spotter hydros. Plane. There's no hydros. Sorry.
There's no sensors, no torpedoes.
Right.
It does have def AA. It does have a heel. And then you could take a fighter or a spotter, but you take the spotter because it's got that crazy reloading spotter that's part of its gimmick. That rapid takeoff spotter, without doing anything, the base, you get 5 uses. It runs for 60 seconds. It boosts your range for 20 seconds, and its cooldown is only 10 seconds. So you can launch that spotter plane and use it for a minute and then reposition. You don't necessarily even have enough time. You might get dark when the spotter plane comes down, because your gun bloom shrinks, and then you can put the spotter plane back up. It's crazy. But with that shell velocity, it does make it a little harder to Wooster like behind an island, right? It's not as lofty of shells, but the shells are mechanically look to be way more usable because of that.
So I'd like to announce that we have been joined by Mr. Just Cheg, Prague's favorite bearded presenter. Cheg, how are you doing this fine Saturday?
I'm doing good. I hope the sound is fine because I'm at home. Not really. Okay.
You sound great, buddy.
Yeah,
is it still Saturday where you are, though?
It is. It's almost like Sunday for me because we had, for me, 4 weekends of COTS and then the longest night of the museum, and then I took, Friday and Monday off to recharge batteries, And,
I hope they pay you guys. I hope they don't pay you guys in doubloons for all that extra work you did.
Yeah, we do get some doubloons. No, but it's like a lot of.
They do give us doubloons. No, that's what we don't want. We want you to get real money.
No, of course we get paid properly, but also it's a pleasure to do these massive events. Like while you're doing it, it's a bit tough, but then when you look back, you're like very proud about it, and this year especially was really good. So. No complaints.
We were talking about the longest night of the museums earlier, and not to dive back into that topic again, because I think we could talk about that for a very long time, but that was really cool. I enjoyed watching the parts of that I was able to catch during my work day yesterday, so that was really great. And certainly COTS, right? What an enormous event you guys run for weeks on end. But we're here to talk about Vallejo, and I know that you have a particular love about Vallejo. Can you share some of your experiences? And real quick, for folks who don't know Cheg, Cheg is one of Wargaming's community managers who works out of the Prague office in for the EU group. So we're really excited to have you here. Please tell us about Vallejo, sir.
Usually it's you have us cunts, but not today.
That's true. We got Cheg this week.
Oh, that's great. I like the variety.
Well, for me, a few years ago, I actually got Lazo as one of the last ships that I can get that I didn't have. And, it's like, I had the same situation with like Yolo Emilio, for example. So why would you ever buy this ship? It makes no sense, when you look at it on the paper. And then there's the gimmick, and then I have the same situation now with Almirante Grau, where why would I not play Seven Provinces? I love that ship. I don't need Grau. And then you start playing the ship, it just feels different. It just feels like a new experience. And sometimes it just clicks. And I really enjoy playing both Lazo, and actually very popular now in the brawls, 1v1 brawls.
I bet, yeah.
And it does good unless there's Toulon on the other side.
Yes.
Cheat battleship, in tier 7, destroying.
Finally, Toulon has value.
Exactly.
I remember when they announced that brawl, and somebody in chat on one of our streams was like, "Oh, Toulon's finally having its day," and I was like, "Holy crap! I think you're right."
It's brutal. I've been playing it a lot, and oh god, you one-shot ships like Atlanta, one-shot, like through the nose, citadels, no problem.
Because Toulon does not have a lot of love in random battles, but I think it does.
No. I
think it does better in that constrained environment.
It definitely shines here. But I recently figured out that I'm mostly a battleship. If I am anymore, I don't even know. I play everything lately. But I discovered that I really like maybe like the old Henri IV playstyle, where you like kiting kind of, or even some Japanese style. And I'm really bad with islands.
Yeah.
There are two things I just can't. Like if I play anything that has smoke, I will die to torpedoes in my own smoke, like 100% of the time. And the islands, I just can't. It just doesn't work for me. So as Skada mentioned already, Vallejo, you would expect it to be like Worcester, where you can just lob and set things on fire, whatnot. But I use that range, and I just I just angle out and try to avoid It's wiggly enough to be able to kind of actively dodge shells, because you will mostly be targeted by battleships. So these are slow projectiles, and the fact that you can have this, it's just an unexpected thing for not only the gimmick, but also that you barely ever see Vallejo in the game, right? So there's a lot of situations where people don't know, as you guys said, like, does it have radar? Does it have hydro? Everything, but it's a threat because people don't know. And
absolutely.
And just like the capability of like kiting away and showering people with HE, is fun. I tried playing both with and without FHE, and I just found it more viable in randoms, obviously, to just play without FHE, just set as many fires on big hulls as possible, and it works. It's just a lot of fun. Also, if you end up encountering a destroyer, you're very powerful against them because of how the projectiles are and everything. So I don't know. The only problem with it, like, I would never take it anywhere. Like like right now, if you're silver, you can play it in ranked, right? Like, I would never allow myself to go in because I know that there's like 50% chance that I will just explode in one salvo. Because they're definitely ships where you can't do much about it. And in ranked, like, the battlefield, quote unquote, is like a smaller, so you don't have that much, runaway space, but you still want to be engaged all the time because caps are so important and the matches are shorter. And if you get away, that's one ship less in such a small pool of ships as well.
Yeah, I have done some. I obviously haven't played any Vallejo in ranked or anything. I have played Lazo in ranked, and sometimes it's okay, and other times it's exactly as you described, right? It's not in the right place. It can't quite have enough punch to make the impact in a competitive battle. So I can imagine that Vallejo would kind of play out the same way.
Lazo, though, tier for tier is much sturdier than Vallejo, though. Like, Vallejo is meeting really big guns, right? At tier 9,
yeah,
in random, you're meeting Shikishimas and it's crazy. Exactly.
Ande burst fires and all that.
Even the cruisers, super cruisers will have such insane firepower. Like, and then Lazo, I mean, of course, if it meets certain tier 9s that are naughty, it's a bit of a problem, but in general, especially like tier 4 tier, like on tier 7, Lazo can survive much more reliably than Vallejo, I would say.
Yeah, we're all Lazo fans, and what I see on paper, at least with Vallejo, is something that might have some similar feel. And so that's a great way to, if people are asking, like, well, what's this like if I'm going to spend my steel on it? It's like, well, have you played Lazo?
This is what I was suggesting. Like, if you haven't played Lazo and you are thinking about Vallejo, because look, I agree with you guys, spending steel on tier 9 is, at times, can feel really like a waste, especially if you buy it and it doesn't click. Me buying steel counts for subs, but okay. I
could have put steel camos on 2 more subs for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna run out of subs. But this is what I would give as an example, is like, just, it's so much easier and affordable to get Lazo. If I'm not wrong, it's called. Yeah. And not that much because it's tier 7. And try it. And if you don't like Lazo, but give it like proper 10-15 games before you make it, because it needs to click. It takes time. These are finicky ships.
They are. And if you... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If you are not enjoying Lazo, you're not going to enjoy Vallejo, like, most likely.
I think your comment about 15 games is right. I think we talk a lot about how frail Lazo is, right? And you talked about how Vallejo kind of takes that to the next level because it's facing even more powerful ships. But Lazo, you're gonna have situations where you're playing that thing and you just get wiped off the map, and that teaches you to not do that in the future. So if you just experience 2 or 3 of those and you go, this ship sucks, that means you didn't get to the part where you learned the lesson, right?
Exactly.
And so you got to get there before you judge that ship, and in turn before you judge this ship via that one.
And don't forget, like, with Lazo, 10-15 games enough, because you're going to be meeting folks at tier 6 who still don't know how the mechanics work properly, bouncing, where to position, how to stay stealthy and whatnot. On tier 9 ship, you're gonna meet all the veterans of the game. Like, they know exactly how to screw. And even if they don't know if you have hydro radar, they know you're a light cruiser, and they know exactly what
they know that part.
Yeah, which is what matters, right? You're gonna get deleted if you make 1 or 2 mistakes. That's it. It's over.
Skada, you sounded like you were gonna chime in with something there.
No, I was just gonna say, just jokingly, right? When you think about Lazo and Vallejo, these are 2 ships that both are excited to see Colorado. If you see a that guy out there that's like, American battleships are the best, and you're like, sure, let me introduce you to my friend Fire. It's two ships that enjoy that target.
Absolutely.
Setting up barbecue on their deck.
Yep.
But if I had to use one word like to describe it, I would say smooth. It's very smooth once it clicks, because of how fluently you fire, and it just feels like very, very smooth gameplay once you figure it out.
I played on my press account a couple of times this boat. That's a weird way to say that sentence, but a couple of times we played it, and there were some battles where I did Lazo things, and then there were a couple of battles or maybe a battle where I got overrun, and I was running away from dudes and magically bouncing shells I shouldn't have been able to bounce, which I don't think is a normal experience. So do not count on that. But it was.
I mean, you can bounce, but there's also a chance that you just get clapped and that's it.
Yeah. I just had this dude pursuing me, and I was just hosing him down with HE. It was amazing the damage I could do with it. Go ahead, Scott.
I was just say, like Cheg said, kiting away, and it seems like it would make a lot of sense, but mechanically, it also has kind of like that flat American light cruiser ass too, that makes it in that scenario. It's got a place that'll catch shells even if you're angled.
Yeah, that's right.
You can make a mistake with kiting as well, like easily.
Yeah.
But then I really like in randoms. I love playing Khabarovsk as well, and that's what I do. Like I kite and set things on fire, so it makes sense that I enjoy Lazo as well. Like kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dead Horse had an interesting question, which he threw to me, but I'm going to pose it to Skada, I think. So there's I said Clyde plays live. With the upcoming buff to the spotter captain skill, do you think we'll see more Vallejos in game due to the huge buff to Vallejo and Lazo? So for anybody's interest at home, there's a negative right now, a malice, if you will, with the spotter plane buff that I think it allows it to reload faster, but at the cost of the duration of the spotter plane. They're taking away the duration negative, basically. So what do we think about that? Do we think that's going to increase people's view of Lazo or Vallejo?
So I'd love to answer that, but I don't know if I should because it's under test.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about that aspect.
It's not. I haven't looked at it.
No, but wait. But it's your opinion on if this will make these two ships more, like
more popular.
Would people like to play?
I'll give my answer, but if I get in trouble, you've got to take it to
you
Popeye
can point
for me.
the finger at me. I'm sitting here with you guys. So this is okay.
What I will say is about Lazo.
Cheg said it was okay.
What I will say is about Lazo. I think I don't know if it'll make more people play Lazo, because I think there's a lot of people that probably have Lazo that got deleted, and they have a bad opinion of Lazo because they struggle in light cruisers, right? I'm looking forward to that buff.
I think that buff is going to be really nice.
But it's a change to Eye in the Sky, right? And so isn't it a change to the Eye in the Sky captain?
It is a change to the Eye in the Sky.
I don't think folks normally take that on these ships that have improved spotter already.
That's going to be my take. Yeah.
So I don't know that you would use that on these. Now, I could foresee a situation where you might want to try that out with the improved spotter and then really see what it's like. You'd increase the number of planes you have. Vallejo's, like I said, goes up for a minute, comes down for 10 seconds. If you take Eye in the Sky, you're going to get a couple more planes, and it's going to go up for 40 seconds. But then it's not, you already have that such 10-second thing. I think it would be a penalty.
I'm with you. It feels almost like a waste.
Yeah, so
especially if you have superintendent, like on Vallejo, you have 6 planes, and you have only 10 seconds cooldown. I don't feel like this will make them more.
Real quick, I'll jump in. So X Solitude says it literally doesn't matter for those ships, and then put a bunch of question marks. Cooldown is close to non-existent, and you really don't need the extra 2 charges, so it feels like you're spending the skill points for nothing. Really, what you're getting is part of what Eye in the Sky offers, and so it's going to be more valuable, I think, on other ships. Go ahead.
Yeah, totally. Just generically, that change is actually going to make Eye in the Sky a viable 2-point skill. And I think there might be a couple ships where I play with Eye in the Sky because I like it. Even with the current malice that it has, I do think that on other spotter plane ships that makes, hey, do I want to spend 2 points here, a reality? Because, honestly, since the captain rework, if you look at that 2-point line on cruisers, there's not a whole lot of stuff there that people buy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair.
And if anyone Sully would know. And playing with Penta, Sully actually extremely shout out to Sully. Sully extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there you go.
No, I think
agree.
that's
I don't think it's gonna make any difference.
Yeah, I think what we'll find is other cruisers that wish they could shoot further are gonna go for it. But I think those cruisers with the rapid takeoff spotter, the extra 2 charges, I mean, you already get 1 million of them, right? So like, I just don't know if you need it. That said, I do think that what Skada said is that change looks like it's designed to improve that skills popularity. I think that part will be effective. Whether or not you see more of these ships, probably not in my book, but you will see people, or at least hear about people, taking that skill, putting it into work, putting it to work, because it just isn't worth anything right now with what you pay for it, or at least not worth enough right now with what you have to pay in that negative in terms of the duration or what have you.
I mean, also you have to invest, various cars. Like you need steel for a tier 9. It's just, I feel like over the course of time, the percentage of Vallejos in game will just be dropping down. It's just it's a very niche ship, and
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have. I mean, like, that's the rub. It's an interesting tier 9 cruiser. It has an interesting thing about it, but it doesn't have, like, it's not coated in steel overpowered shenanigans.
No.
And so, I think, I don't have the numbers up, at least for NA, on how many people play them. It's a ship you really never see. But like, totally, like, we've been talking about this whole show. Out of the 3 steel ships I don't have that are available right now, the next steel ship I would buy if they never put any other steel ships in the game is Vallejo. And I would add that it's relatively inexpensive in comparison because it's a tier 9, but with coupon it's only like 16,500 steel. And I mean, come on, that's like 1 battle pass. That's like nothing nowadays. You can get steel. That's no big deal.
You stumble drunkenly through one battle pass. You get yourself a Vallejo.
Yeah, and I will buy this with the coupon when it resets here in a few weeks. So watch for Skada playing Vallejo on stream with Clyde.
Yeah, maybe we'll get 2. Who knows?
There are two kinds of people buying Vallejo, in my opinion. One, like, you really know what you want, and this is something that you have an idea what it's gonna give you, and then the other, that they have enough steel and a coupon, and they can't, it's itchy. They can't wait for that, I don't know, Stalingrad or
there's those folks who
they already bought their steel,
right?
They already bought their steel camo for the San Martin. They've got a couple months before they have to buy their steel camo for Gdansk. They don't know what to do with their steel that they have this month because they have so much of it.
That idea of just extreme steel wealth. It's like keeping up with the Kardashian steel ship edition, right? Like,
they just fall over and win clan battles every season. It's all Hurricane League. They just, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Wargaming doesn't give me enough to buy with my steel, so I guess I'll get this.
There are folks like this, but like percentage-wise,
it's a small group, right?
Silly.
It's a small group.
There are folks like this. They already have Vallejo. Some of them are CCs. Some of them are CCs in your program, and they post videos saying how great it is.
Yeah, no joke, right? No joke.
There's Sully with the flex. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Sully have it, of course.
Sully's like, you plebes don't have 10 steel camos. Most of us don't. I actually have 0 steel camos because I still have some steel ships to get. But I adore the joke that is the ironic steel camo. It is one of my favorite things that people who play World of Warships do. It is silly. Flex. And I, of course, wish I had more steel, but I'm gonna separate my personal feelings with the hilarity that is that.
This guy joining the show that's got a steel camo on his Thrasher. Like, come on.
Cheg here.
Yeah.
No, I don't have it on Thrasher. I have it on Vallejo.
Yeah, but we wanted to make.
And they almost made it on Thrasher as well, because
that is such a flex.
Chat saw that I have a lot of steel stocked, so they were like, "How about a Thrasher?" I'm like, "Okay, calm down now. What is enough?"
I feel like you've got access to some database where you can just click on just_Cheg and there's a little steel box and you just add 10,000.
Yeah, there's a
select I can lose my job as well.
Select star where name is Cheg add steel kind of a thing.
They pay. That's what you get for doing night in the museum and pots every weekend for a month. They pay you in steel camos.
A steel Thrasher.
We get a little bit of steel every now and again, but it's not like that. Don't worry. Even for us, these are expensive things.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'm gonna bail out. I don't want to steal the show. It was
Okay.
awesome to talk about Vallejo because I love it, and you guys enjoy the rest. I'm gonna be listening just like everyone else.
Right on, man. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Cheg. Always a pleasure to have a chance to talk with our Wargaming community management team. Cheg is fantastic, guys. If you don't know Cheg, if you haven't hung out with him on the official stream, swing on over to twitch.tv/World of Warships. Give those guys a follow. I know that's a stupid thing to say to you guys. Most of you are probably following that channel already. But keep your eyes out for Cheg. He runs that show really well. You know, the team over there had big shoes to fill when the twins moved on to work on other projects at Wargaming. And obviously we're really glad to have Cheg and to have Seraphis and the team over there. They do a great job. So,
and big shout out because Cheg knew about your channel and your YouTube content. Like you were on his radar and he was watching stuff long before you were a CC, and he was always like contributing and really cool to chat with. So we're fans, and it's cool to, you know, count him as a person that we get to chat with sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the World of Warships community is large but small, right? And so especially in content creation and stuff, we kind of get to know people. And I remember the first time I logged into YouTube Studio, and I'm like, there's a comment from a guy named Just Cheg. That's not the real Just Cheg, is it? Like, I did not. I was like, this is silly. But it turned out it was the real Just Cheg. And of course, now we've had him on the channel, which is great. So thanks, Cheg, for popping in for a minute. Okay, we are done talking cruisers, and this show always takes a long time, so we should move along to, I think, battleships are next. I only have one of these, so I'm going to have you start maybe and pick any boat. And you can even pick the one I have if you want, but I'll have you kind of pick one and talk us through it. I think you have all of these?
Yeah, I do. I think the rant would begin with Shikishima. If you go back to the last time we did Steel Show, I think I was pretty sour about Shikishima because it was relatively late at night for me because we were doing this on a school night, and I've always felt like Shikishima was kind of a lame pickup. I mean, Shikishima is a Yamato with really big guns, but only 6 of them, and I hate 6-gun battleships, but I bought it anyway. And the other gimmick is it has a bunch of all of its secondaries are like Haragumo turrets. They're like the little pew-pew secondaries, right? And so like originally when it came out, you could kind of build it for secondaries. Not that Yamato's hull is great for brawling, but you don't really do that with it anymore. I think since the last time we did a Steel Show, and again, we're pretty average players, but I think for a while my PR damage record in randoms was in Shikishima. Like I had a really good game in it. And that's probably just because I've gotten more skilled over time, and it's easier for me to play now. It overmatches everything. You just only get 6 shells. But otherwise, if you like Yamato, it's that kind of ship. And I think my grok last time, my complaints about it, my gripes were that you can get Satsuma now at tier 11 for silver, and it has these guns and it has more of them, and it has like the best F-key gimmick of any super battleship, which is the increased accuracy. And so I question why, unless you're like a completionist at this point, why you would really want Shikishima as opposed to just playing Satsuma. I know that obviously, well, you could play Shikishima in something that's tier 10 only, right, or competitive or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, Cheg's right. It's the sound. It has the best sound effect. That's true. But I do question like the value of getting it over, really over any of these other battleships at this point. I know we don't necessarily talk about what order you would get stuff in, but I think I said last time I quasi regretted getting it when I did. I'm fine having it, and it's fine, but I don't think it's ultra special. It's just kind of a variation on a theme, which a lot of steel ships are.
Real quick, I did a giveaway while we were chatting there. Master Celtic, if you're listening but not watching, you've won a prize. Please send me or just say something in chat and we'll get you a CC container. Thanks for playing with us. There you are. Hey, thanks, Celtic. We have this I feel like we've had this conversation about Shiki and I was about to say Hanover, but Satsuma every time, because I think it's really relevant. It's really true. You know, we had the conversation about the sound of the guns for Shiki. I think Shikishima, of course, it can earn you credits better, which is true, right? But I mean, if you're just looking at ship performance, it'd be difficult to not think about that super ship, and that really begs the question about, you know, how we're doing as a community with accepting those super ships and you know, getting them integrated and having them be a part of the game, right? Whereas, you know, 6 months ago when we talked about this, or even a year ago, and maybe this idea of super ships were kind of a hot commodity, we weren't really as up on them. But nowadays, I think they're becoming a viable alternative. You were going to say,
and even if you're just playing at tens, right? You've spent a lot of steel on Shikishima, and again, it, you know, brought up in chat by Blackadder, 6 guns trolls you a lot, and I gripe about 6-gun battleships, right? The reload is great. I mean, that's improved because it's only a 6-gun battleship, and I think ultimately there are people that bleed Yamato. I'm not one of those players. Like, I'm not a huge Yamato stan. I mean, out of all of those ships in my port between Yamato and Shikishima and stuff, the one I probably like the best is Musashi because of its overpowered nature being at tier 9. And so, like, I think if you're looking at Shikishima and you're like, I'm going to spend all this steel for Shikishima, and you have Yamato, I think you might be better off using a different hard-to-earn currency in research points and buying the legendary module for Yamato if you don't have it, and just improving Yamato and just kind of passing over Shikishima. Because again, the difference in overmatch between the 460s and the 508s, I believe they are on this ship, like, really at that point, or what are they, 510s? Like, what are we talking about at that point? You're going to overmatch stuff with both of them. So, I don't know, 9 guns and the improved accuracy, I think Yamato is probably more consistent. But again, it's one of the steel ships in the world of warships. And if you're a battleship player and you really like Japanese battleships, Shikishima.
Right. Yeah. I'm just putting on the screen for folks the main battery director system for Yamato. That's the unique upgrade for Yamato. You can buy it for 19,200 research points. And it does the things that are listed here on the screen. 7% less dispersion, which makes your Yamato more accurate, and main battery traverse speed 13%. So that's a way to kind of hype up your Yami for sure. I mean, it's already pretty darn accurate. Imagine if it was more so, you know?
Yeah, and like Hugh points out that Shikishima kind of has that already. And it's just, I'm thinking that you're probably better off having that with 9 shells than you are with 6.
Yeah, that'd be kind of the counter there. And of course, if you have research points laying around, we talk about research points as a thing that you can influence easier than you can influence your income of steel. Steel, you're waiting for events and you're doing the things that allow Wargaming to give you the Scooby snack that is steel, right? If you're either doing the modes and stuff that we talked about at the beginning, ranked and clan battles, or the battle pass, things like that. Whereas you can use your boosters and things to get more credits, more XP, and get those research points.
Yeah, even a co-op ops main who brute forces his way through free XP earnings can get research points faster than he's probably going to earn steel, right? Because he's not playing clans or ranked. He's depending on free steel handouts from other sources, right? So I don't know. I just that'd be kind of my thought on that. Full disclosure, I don't have leg mod for Yamato because I don't care. Like, I don't.
You're not a Yami guy.
I'm not a I mean, it's fine. Like, it's just not a ship I look to play that often. I guess if you one of the few whaling ships I don't have because of the extreme cost was the ARP Yamato, and I believe that had the leg mod built into it or came with it or something. So maybe if you're that guy and you have that, enjoy yourself. But yeah, I don't think Shikishima's terrible.
It's just got a lot of competition, right? I think the takeaway.
It's just I just don't know that it's especially special.
Yeah, and I think that's true. We know there's going to be people who love the idea of these giant guns, and they love the sound, and they love Japanese battleships, and that means this boat is literally for you. It's ready to rock and roll. It looks great. I'm showing it on the screen right now. I like the camo on it and everything. I think it's a cool looking ship. I'm not a big battleship person necessarily, and I'm certainly not like necessarily a big Japanese battleship person. Nothing against them. They just haven't resonated with me. That snipering thing is not one of the things I can really contribute to very well in a battle, so I just don't. But I think for somebody who just wants another one, as you say, it's a ship that is available. If you have steel, go get it. And that's just fine. The 6-gun battleship thing is a thing that I think we talk about a lot, and I think it's worth mentioning every time. A little bit of dispersion can give you a real bad day when you only have 6 projectiles going out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say if you want a 6-gun battleship and you want to spend steel on it, Incomparable.
Yeah, let's actually jump over there. Are you talking about the Barney Award-winning Incomparable?
Barney Award-winning, first annual Barney Award-winning Incomparable.
That's right.
Not that I'm trying to move this along, but
no. I think it's a good time to shift over.
Yeah, so Incomparable, it has also a 6-gun battleship. It also has clown shoes guns that are, what are they, 508s, 510s? I always get the two of them confused.
They are quite big.
They're both of those ships just have silly big guns, right?
I think these ones are 508s. Yes, 508s on Incomparable.
Yeah, 510s on Shikishima, 508s on Incomparable. Pardon me to all of the offended on YouTube comments.
Yeah, we're using the king's measurements, as we said earlier. So.
And so this ship also has crazy big guns with a pretty comfortable reload, and they're pretty accurate. The range isn't as good as Shikishima, but the concealment on this ship is far superior, and the speed is superior. And what this ships play completely differently, right? This ship is the progenitor to the British battle cruiser split that ends in St. Vincent. This ship came out months before those ships, and the idea was like, hey, check this out. It's a big gun British battleship that's fast, but it's not really a battleship because it doesn't have a ton of armor. You can get squashed in it, but it's got a good heel, and it's really sneaky. And it has torpedoes and stuff. Now, this has more traditional torpedoes than a St. Vincent, but that's fine. This also actually has hydros. It has like British style hydros, which are kind of short range hydros on a battleship, which is funny. Right. It also has a spotter plane that gets the range out there, which I like to use early in the match. When stuff starts getting spotted, if you're in a match where you've got a CV that's doing that first flyover, you get that spotter up and you can do some tags with these guns, and then you get dark again and move around because the concealment is so good for a battleship. It's just stupid good. Has speed boost. Has improved specialized repair teams. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this ship. That said, I think when I talked about it last time, the St. Vincent line had come out, and the question there is, well, do I need to spend my steel on this, or because I can
I just get St. Vincent?
Can I get a tech line boat? I mean, St. Vincent doesn't have 508s. It's got 457s, but those are pretty big, and it's got 9 of them instead of 6. And it still has weird torpedoes. It doesn't have hydro, but it's fast and sneaky and has a good heel.
Yeah.
And do I mind having Incomp and St. Vincent? No. But in the clan battle season a couple seasons ago, St. Vincent became extremely popular in clan battles, and when it was limited, and in our clan, there were situations where, because of the limiting, I couldn't play it because one of our clanmates was, say, playing like Kremlin or something. And I was like, well, I'll take Incomp instead. It does not perform the same in those scenarios. It just, I could do a lot more with St. Vincent than I could with Incomparable, mostly because I could bow in on Incomparable with St. Vincent and have 6 guns forward. And on this, I only had 4. And Incomparable or St. Vincent felt more effective in those scenarios for me. But again, I'm not a chat or anything. It's a normal player. So
just a couple of guys playing warships.
Yeah. But this ship's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun in randoms. We had a lot of fun. You were talking earlier about Airship Escort and having fun games in that. I remember having fun with this in Airship Escort just because everybody was moving into closer ranges, but this still had such great concealment that you'd be able to like pop a shot people with these guns, and it just devastates cruisers. Even in battleships with these guns because they're so big, and it's a lot of fun. Maybe its weakness is trying to clobber DDs, but if you switch to HE, the HE is pretty devastating at those sizes. And it has the hydros to help you avoid getting torped out. You can go dark. You can use a speed boost. This is one of those ships on your captain where more than likely you should also be running brisk like you would on St. Vincent because the concealment's so good. So you're getting that extra little speed bump when nobody sees you. So it's a fun ship.
Yeah, we got a comment in chat from CrossMap Blapper. Says the shells are kind of slow, the dispersion's a little wonky, or it says that the dispersion is wonky. I can't trust those guns like I do a Vermont or Yamato. absolutely very different play styles for sure. So I think your experience is right on. Skada, you were just talking about the concealment and the idea of running brisk, because you are more concealed than most battleships. You can take advantage of that skill more, which makes it worth more to you than it would be on a ship that's got less concealment. So I think with Incomparable, you're intended to get in a lot closer than you would with a Yamato or a Vermont, where that dispersion will, let's say, affect you less. I won't say it won't affect you because that's unreasonable, but I think you can get into a different position and take advantage of this ship. I've only played this one, I think, one time, so I can't speak to a lot of it from experience, but listening to your talk about it, and of course peeling what I can from the stats, and remembering you playing it a lot in clan battle, or at least a little bit that season, when as you said, we kind of decided that really wasn't working the same as St. Vincent was. I'm going to do something different. It doesn't mean that this boat is worse than St. Vincent. It means that in that scenario, with a constrained clan battles type performance, it was different. But I think you talked about Airship Escort. I think this ship, I've seen it pretty popularly in randoms. We joked about the Barney award-winning nature, but I mean, in a very real sense, we assembled a panel of very knowledgeable judges who voted this ship as not only the best battleship of the year, but as the best steel ship released in 2022. And that was voted on by a number of CCs. A couple of Wargaming folks were involved, some of our community managers, and some prominent streamers and testers and stuff. So we had some really knowledgeable folks say, no, this is our favorite battleship of the year. So I think there's a lot of reasons to get Incomparable. It's just a popular ship. Yeah, go ahead.
Just for reference too, on that award, like that was premiums and specials.
That's true. So, premium and specials. And so it won Steel Ship of 2022 and then premium and special battleship of 2022. Not just so you're right. It wasn't up against the tech lines.
But to compare that, the tech line of the year from our little award show in 2022 was that St. Vincent line, right?
Exactly. So that competition is real.
Yeah, but both are a lot of fun, and they don't. This isn't a scenario where I feel like they play a ton differently, although they do. I mean, I feel like because of the turret placement on the ships, I feel like I do maneuver Incomparable a little bit differently than I do St. Vincent. When we talked about the concealment. It's unbuffed without a captain or anything. Its detection is 13.9 kilometers, right? So when you buff it and you put concealment on it, it gets down extremely low. In comparison, Stalingrad's unmolested out of the box concealment is 17.58 as a cruiser, right? And so Shikishima's is 17.46, right? So this is very sneaky. Vallejo's unmodified concealment's 11.54. Austin's is 11.52, right?
Quick,
so
it's 13.09, so it's actually 13.1, right?
Yeah.
I think you might have missed the O, just for anybody at home who's listening. Carry on though. Yeah. But that's how
stealthy
it is, right?
Yeah, very stealthy. When it's built for concealment, as you would, it's very stealthy. It's more like a cruiser in that regard.
Yeah, it's kind of unreasonably stealthy given the size of this ship. It's so big. I popped into my, we made a little video for the beginning of the Gold Barnacles Awards. By the way, if anybody hasn't watched that, you can find it on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description of the YouTube video for this. But there's a scene in the little kind of splash teaser video at the beginning where you were playing that boat, and I think I was playing a Dalian because we were trying to get some footage for that. And I remember panning the camera across that thing when I was doing different cuts to make that video, and I was like, this boat is just massive, but that low concealment really does let it sneak up and do stuff. Auto Riot says no one expects a giant battleship to be 10 kilometers away from you all of a sudden, and that happens with this boat, so that can make it pretty potent.
Yeah, no one expects it to be that far away from you with 10-kilometer torpedoes either, right? So
also that, by the way,
like its torpedo package is also their 10-kilometer range, and it's 2x4 on either side of the ship, and they have pretty good angles. It's not like a St. Vincent where you only can shoot like one or two torpedoes out of the nose. It has more normal torpedoes, and you can ripple fire them, British style, and so there's that about it as well. It can dang near stealth torp, which is kind of funny for a battleship.
I can only find one. Here's one set of torps. Where it has dual on each.
One on each hip.
Oh, one on each hip. Okay, I thought you said I had two on each side. I was like, dang, that's a lot of torpedoes.
Yeah.
Okay.
2x4.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's a fun ship. whipping this along. The other
let's go to
ship, one of the ships that it was competing against this year in Golden Barnacles for best steel ship and best new battleship in that category was the Mecklenburg.
Actually, I think Mecklenburg. Didn't Mecklenburg come out in the fall?
Take it from the guy who read the category. For
Okay, all right. No, you're right. It was in the video too. Mecklenburg. Yep, you're right. It's a steel German battleship with little guns, 16 little guns.
Yeah. So now you go in the complete other direction of wargaming gimmicks. Instead of 6 giant guns, we're giving you 16 little guns. Mecklenburg is obviously a tier 10 German battleship. It for steel. It, as we've said, it has 16 guns that are like 305s, I believe.
Yes, they're 305.
Same guns as you would see on Odin and Brandenburg, I believe, which are
that's the same caliber. I think there may be some differences in the shells.
Yeah, maybe different shells. Mecklenburg wall at tier 10 is actually the Friedrich Grosse or Pommern hull, which is normally at tier 9. It is not a Kurfürst hull. So at first people I think thought it was a Kurfürst with replaced turrets. It's not. It's the tier 9. And so it does suffer from some of the problems that hull has, where if you, because of the shape of the turtleback, if you turn hard at speed and you can actually lift the ship rolls and you can take citadels in that ship, it's a thing. But this ship has really great range with those shells. It has it does have a spotter plane consumable. It has defensive AA. It has really good AA. Most people assume German battleships have junk AA. This one does not. This ship actually has really good AA, which people don't expect. Carriers don't expect it until they know. And so it has really good AA. It has torpedoes. It has like your standard German battleship 6-kilometer torpedo dumps on the sides. What it doesn't have is hydro, which you're like, oh no. So it's kind of more like a Tirpitz in that way. And so I know a lot of German battleship stands are going to be like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to build it for secondaries. And you can. It's got like the Friedrich Grosse style secondary package, or I don't think it's the Pommern style. I think it's like Freddy, where they're all like 127s or maybe like GK. That you don't need to take IFHE if you wanted to build into the secondaries. But you shouldn't build into the secondaries on this. It's not for that. You might build into secondary range, but then instead of taking manual secondaries, take Fearless Brawler to boost the reload even more, because the reload on it's really, really good for having 16 guns. It's way better than it has any business being, because most of the battleships that have this many guns have trash reload. This ship
26 seconds
does not. Its base reload is 26, and its base range is 22 kilometers with a spotter. So you take reload in slot 6, you don't worry about taking range there. And this is a weird German battleship that you generate a lot of damage early match by farming with fires. You use the HE, you fire 16 shells at range. It has German quarter pens, so you get really strong alpha strikes out of that HE, and you set a lot of fires with it. Because you're putting so many shells down range, you get a lot of fire damage with this ship. It's kind of an HE spammer in that way. If you're fighting cruisers, you're lucky in that you have the 305s instead of having larger guns, right? And so you can rotate to the AP, and you don't have to worry about overpenning cruisers as much. It gets more full pens and gets more citadels because of that against cruisers at tier 10. So that's really great too.
Talking about the AA you mentioned, I pulled that up on ShipTool just to take a look. And ShipTool does this thing where they do a value called AA strength, which I think they effectively make up, because it's not the same number as what we see in the World Warships client. But they do some math and they rate its AA strength. So if you sort all the tier 10 battleships by that, Mecklenburg comes in at number 6. It's only behind Slava, Ohio, Louisiana, Montana, and Kremlin in that order. Taking a look at her DPS, she's got what's actually a really nice blend. So she's got 123 DPS at long range, that's 6 kilometers, 281 DPS at 4 kilometers, and 238 DPS at 3 kilometers. A lot of ships have maybe 200 at long, a little bit at medium, and basically like 20 at short, or a bunch at short and not very much at long. This is kind of a nice bundle of AA in all of the ranges, with its strongest AA DPS being at medium, starting at 4 kilometers. And 4 kilometers is better than a lot of ships. A lot of ships medium is only 3.5. So that's actually a really nice AA suite. As we know, you're not going to stop every airplane that's going to come get you. But you can at least, have something to say about whether or not they can attack you for free. And so you're right. I was surprised by that. I didn't realize that it had such a good AA package.
Yeah, and nobody really recognizes that, and it really is probably, if German battleships, people are like, oh, they don't have great AA, right? And this still has a lot of superstructure that can get farmed. Mm-hmm. It's a tier 9 hull.
Yeah.
I find that this ship plays a lot better at intermediate to longer ranges than most German battleships do, because of the way the gun package works and because of the survivability of the hull. I don't personally think you should brawl with it, but you spend steel on it, you do what you want, bro.
Go have your fun.
I think,
however you're gonna have it.
Yeah, and I think if I was talking about cons on the ship, it's that tier 9 hull at tier 10 is kind of a drag sometimes, and the turret angles on the rear turrets are just terrible.
They're a little subpar.
Yeah, if you look,
let me pull it up here. I'll bring it on the screen.
If you look at, you can see that on Ship Tool, I believe.
I was just going to show the picture of the ship. Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just really bad because of the 4 barrels and because of the size of the superstructure. Mm-hmm. The gun angles on the back with those 4-barrel turrets, they just don't get. They don't come around enough for the angles you want to take with it. It actually probably is better kiting in that regard than it is if you're trying to angle forward with it. If you drill into it and you go to the main battery,
here's the main battery tab.
Yeah, it'll show you the diagram. Right. And so the rear turret angle is like 41% to 4, it's
41 or 7 degrees, 47 degrees.
Yeah. It's
41's on
kind of rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your angles, if you look in the image on the one side, right, like the crossover dark pink, that's where you're getting all your guns engaged.
Whereas if we look at like Incomparable, look how much more forward you can. And I just picked a ship at random, right? I wasn't looking for.
And Incomparable, and no, that's a good example. Incomparable's rear turret is very usable.
Is it? Okay.
It comes around really well. And this ship, that's a problem with this ship, in my opinion.
Ohio, but also about 30 degrees, right?
Yeah. So that's a downer with this boat. But this is a fun ship. I like it. I don't think I've played it a ton since I got it.
You played it. You kind of ran it through the paces when you first got it, but I don't know that I've seen you trot it out lately.
I haven't had like a monster game in it since I got it, like I kind of expect to have, and it probably has a lot to do with combinations of matchups and things that we've gone up against, just how it is, right? Like I have no reason why my high PR personal record for damage was in Shikishima when I don't really like that ship, but something like this that I actually think is kind of interesting, I haven't had as much success with, but I think this is a fun ship, and obviously it's German, so it moves to the top of the list for a lot of fans of World of Warships that are infatuated with
German
ships,
whatever flavor. When we talked about which ship to get last time, I was looking at 3 ships that are on this tab because it was before Z42 had come out. I ended up getting Z42 when it came out. I was holding my steel for that, or I was going to get either Mecklenburg, Incomparable, or Bourgogne, I think. And I ended up getting Bourgogne as well. And so we'll jump over to talk about that boat next. I know I said I wasn't going to tell you what boat you should get with your steel, but Bourgogne is so good, and I don't consider myself a battleship player. When Cheg was on a little bit earlier, he said, he's like, I consider myself a battleship main, except for, I don't know, I really play everything now. I consider myself a destroyer main, but really I play everything now, right? And so when people were telling me to get Bourgogne, I was like, I don't know. It's a battleship, though. And I don't think I like Bourgogne, but I really kind of do. And so I got that ship, and it's just been an absolute blast to play. The reload booster is incredible. Those 380s, we talked about overpenning cruisers and not getting the hits that you want. The 380s seem to get those when you need them, right? They don't overpen nearly as badly as 406s or, heaven forbid, 457s, 460s. And beyond, right? Bourgogne is fast. I like a ship that's maneuverable. Bourgogne is just amazing, and I've known there was another CC. I won't name them because it's their story to tell, but or as their story to out themselves about, but they were like not really a battleship player either, and they were talking about this. I don't know what I should get. I don't know what I should get. I don't know what I should get. The CCs were suggesting you should get Bourgogne, and eventually they did. And they came back and they're like, I can't believe this ship is allowed to be in the game. It is so much fun. It is so powerful. It is so great. I love this boat. I can't believe it. And I told that person, shush, let's not tell Wargaming how strong this boat is. They know, right? Wargaming is not at all confused about what Bourgogne is or isn't. I just about said board gaming, which I think is a new term I just coined. But Skada, you've got Bourgogne. You've had it for a long time. Tell us about that sweet Bourgogne meat.
Yeah, it's the first steel ship I ever bought because I was already a big Francophile in the game. My first thing I ever played in World of Warships that I got to tier 10 was the French cruisers, the Henri. One of the first battleship lines that I think I played. I might have played the U.S. battleships first because everybody does, but I really like the French battleships, and I'm a big fan of Alsace. And Alsace is the tier 9 tech tree variant, which is the same ship as Bourgogne, right? They look the same, basically same armor profile, same guns, but the difference being is that Bourgogne, the old timers will tell you, is a pre-nerf Alsace, right? So the gun accuracy on Alsace and the tech line version was nerfed, and Bourgogne has much more accurate guns and main battery reload booster, so Bourgogne is so much fun. Its range is great. You have trolley French shells, that the AP's good, the HE's good. There's nothing bad about the way the guns work. You're like, well, yeah, but it's only got 32 millimeter armor because it's a French battleship, and that's true. But it also has like weird black hole French battleship armor where shells will hit it and do nothing or go somewhere to die. Because there's weirdness with French battleships in that way. That persists on Republique and Richelieu and all of Jean Bar, and the list goes on. Your favorite Gascon, all those ships, right? So this ship is just so much fun. I had no qualms about buying this as my first steel ship. I think pretty much at the time, everybody in our little clan, if they had a steel ship, they had Stalingrad. I might have been the first person in the clan at the time that bought this. We weren't as
active player. Yeah, that's
we weren't as productive in getting of steel back then. It was a big deal. I think I was playing for maybe a year and a half before I had enough steel to get my first steel ship because it just took longer. Well, and now I have just mountains of steel ships and just the wealth of riches. But I'm no Cheg with steel camos on my blow, but
you're not getting paid your overtime in steel.
No,
we joked about earlier.
No, I have to convert it a different way. And so Bourgogne is just so much fun. It has speed boost. It has main battery reload booster. I don't know what else to say about it. If you want to be a goofball, you can build for secondaries on it. They're not great, but it's a fireworks show that sprays things everywhere. It's just, there's all kinds of fun to be had with this ship. Most recently, I don't play it a lot in randoms. You guys take it out in randoms and have these monster games. For the longest time after I got it, my win rate in randoms was 0%. I would have 5-6 matches in. It was 0% in randoms where I was averaging a lot of damage, probably like 110, which is nothing for Bourgogne. If you look like on NA, that's probably like brown damage for Bourgogne. Like Chad's with Bourgogne average like 180, 190. It's terrible,
color
right?
On the scale is turned brown.
It's just at the very rust brown. It's just terrible, right? So. But I was having fun in it. I wasn't able to be on winning teams in it.
Right.
But even last season in clan battles, I think it was last season. Like I played Bourgogne a fair amount. Maybe it was 2 seasons ago, but it might have been 2 seasons ago when we still could have 2 battleships and clan battles were meant to be fun. And our other friend and streamer Alansaurus Rex.
Check him out at twitch.tv/Alansaurus Rex.
He loves this ship, and he also would play it in clans. Sometimes it'd be like, which one of us is going to be the Bourgogne? And you're like, well, why do you want to play it in competitive? It only has 15-inch guns. It doesn't have amazing armor. It doesn't have amazing hit points. It's got like 75,000 hit points at tier 10. You're like, oh, that's not going to be any good. But some of those shots you can make with this ship and the way you can move it around with the speed boost, makes it really satisfying. And because it only has 15-inch guns, you don't tend to overpen cruisers. So you can get, especially in clans when there's less ships to shoot at you, the less armor and stuff seems less punitive. So you can get sides and you can make it happen with these guns. And then you have main battery reload boosters. So if you don't kill them in the first salvo, you've got the next one already going down range before they can make a maneuver and turn away from it. So it's a lot of fun. This is a great ship. This is, like you said, if you're going to go buy a steel battleship, you should buy this one first. I think, and it's the most affordable, which is like the goofiest thing.
It really is, and it's one of those things where like I've seen multiple players, not just me, and not just that anonymous CC I mentioned earlier, but like there's other players who've just been like, I don't know if I really, Bourgogne doesn't seem like it's in the meta. I don't know. Literally everyone who goes and gets this ship comes back and says, no, this is the greatest ship this is the greatest steel battleship I could have possibly gotten, right? I would dare say that if the Bourgogne was in the mix for best ship of 2022 and this year's Golden Barnacles, Incomparable would not have stood a chance. Like it just wouldn't have, because Bourgogne is that good. And I know we're gushing about it here, and some of you guys are rolling your eyes, but she's just a lot of fun. And again, I come as a player who identifies as more of a destroyer cruiser player, and I'm like, no, this is it. And of course I would. It's fast. It's got a 15% speed boost. It's got that reload booster, so it does things that make me think it's a cruiser. Sometimes it tricks me, and it's just so much fun. So easy to recommend Bourgogne. We have a Fancy Apple says, I'm 900 steel away from the Borger. Wait 2 weeks and a little bit more, Fancy Apple, and you'll get a coupon that makes the ship 25% cheaper. So don't buy a steel ship right now. Now's a bad time to do it. You got a coupon coming, unless you haven't used your coupon for this last 6-month period, in which case use that one right now.
Yeah, get that 900 steel Ricky tick and use that coupon before it resets.
Yeah, exactly. If you still have a coupon available, use that. So make sure you're using that, and then maybe you're already counting that in there. But
I mean, this is a ship that you bought last coupon, and you love it so much you made a fake TV commercial for the Golden Barnacles about it, and I think you've sold merch about it.
I did. You can buy a sticker that is about that sweet Bourgogne meat. It's the Bourgogne canned hams. In fact, I think we may be able to go to a word from our sponsor real quick, if you don't mind. This year's Golden Barnacles are brought to you by Bourgogne canned hams. That sweet Bourgogne meat. It's got a flavor that can't be beat. It's that honey ham taste of canned Bourgogne meat. It comes from France, it's both savory and sweet. That sweet Bourgogne meat, you know it can't be beat. Bourgogne canned hams, the canned meat that can't be beat. Available wherever finer canned meats are sold. So that decal right there you can buy on that website if you're interested, guys. No one has to go buy merch. Don't pressure, don't get worried about it. But it is available. That is something I got so excited about so fast that I made a stupid commercial.
I know you love the ship and you made that commercial, and I always like to point out that nowhere in that commercial of canned video clips of people and meat is there any pork.
I think there's one there, that shredded meat, I think, is a pork product. It was really hard.
There's some prosciutto or something, but like I'll tell you, it's all steak and chicken and weird stuff in there.
There was some seafood in there that really didn't make any sense. Let me tell you, finding cuts of ham on that is fair use, free use, or whatever is hard to do. So I thought about getting into a business where I sell clips of ham, because apparently nobody's doing it, or maybe make them available for free. But anyway, we love the Bourgogne, and that's never been more obvious than it is, I think, right now. So definitely, I think this is a fantastic boat to check out. Skada, we've got one more ship to talk about, and this is a forthcoming steel ship. Now, this ship is still under NDA, but we can put up a picture and we can share the publicly available information about it. So I think both you and I have spent time at the helm of this ship, so we won't be answering any questions about our impressions of the ship. But this is an upcoming steel ship called the Gato, which is an American submarine. They call these fleet submarines because they were able to keep up with and travel with a fleet and go out there and do submarine actions. So we actually saw the USS Cod Museum on the Longest Night in the Museums event that Wargaming just put on recently. And it is a Gato class submarine, which was really cool for folks to see if you're interested in submarines. Now, we understand not everybody's interested in subs. Whether you're interested in them or not, Steel Chads are going to have this boat when it comes out. I don't know exactly when that date's going to be. I don't believe it's been officially announced, but you're going to have to contend with this boat. So I thought it would be at least worth pointing out that this is coming up and that we're seeing the first of our steel submarines come into the game. And what's interesting is I don't think we have a coal submarine yet. Do we, Skada? Or there's certainly nothing on the Research Bureau just yet.
No, as far as I know, every premium submarine has been firmly planted at Tier 8. And there's no Tier 8 coal boats, as we've talked about before. That's the land of doubloons only ships. So this is the first submarine that isn't Tech Tree or doubloons, as far as I remember, as far as I can tell.
That's right. I'm trying to bring up...
Yeah, Cheg, steel camo and Gato is ultimate flex.
That would be the ultimate flex.
Disgusting if you do that. I hope to see that on the EU stream.
You know what? It's not even in Ship Tool. They don't have it, so I got to go find the dev blog article about it.
It is. I'm looking at it in Ship Tool.
Are you? Maybe my filter's broken.
You have to check the box to allow test ships.
I did do that. Oh, you know what? I was filtered on main battery. There's only showing me ships that have guns, the Russian subs and things. I see it there. So we've got Gato coming in. Gato's an American submarine, as I said. It's gonna have 20,200 base hit points. It'll travel at 34 knots, and it's going to be pretty stealthy. 5.76 kilometers, and that's before you do any modification to that. So I think, gosh, this sub's going to be able to get down to like low fives, 5.2, 5.3 probably, with a commander that is built for that. Actually, hang on. Can you take stealth on commanders for subs? That's a good question. Let me find a submarine here.
You know, I should, in theory, have played a lot of subs. I should probably know that.
No, you can't take that. It's not an option. So never mind. It'll be around 5.7, 5.8. Rommel says no. Thank you, Rommel, for confirming. When we take a look at the torpedoes for this, which I think is, we're not going to be able to dive real deep. One of the things Scott and I need to get more knowledge on before we do real deep dive type conversations is submarines. And so, this is one where we're kind of testing the waters a little bit to talk Gato, but it's definitely not an area where we spend.
This is a hard place for us to test the waters too, because we both can't talk about it.
Correct. So I'm literally just reading the screens to you guys. So when we look at the torpedoes, she's got a homing torpedo. Let's see. That travels 6 kilometers. So very short range homing torpedoes, and they do 10,000 damage. And then where do I see the other torpedoes? The alternative Gato torpedo is a standard non-homing torpedo. These go 16.5 kilometers, do about 18,000 damage. So very similar to like a gearing torpedo. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that that means with that range, you can imagine a scenario where a Gato captain would be able to snipe you from range, which could cause, of course, some challenges for folks. But again, those long-range ones aren't going to track. The short-range ones are going to track. So again, it is difficult to talk about this submarine right now. But one thing that is cool is that if I switch over to this screen, I can show it to you. Here it is, in port. So we do have we can put the Gato up on the screen.
Camo's awesome on it.
The camo is amazing.
This is a real ship, right? This is another steel ship that actually was a real ship. It conducted 13 combat missions, and it had 13 battle stars and presidential unit citations in World War II. This was a productive submarine for the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Dutch Eagle and Flyer says, why would it need concealment? It is one of the best concealed ships around, with that base concealment anyway, and it's as fast or faster than all of the better concealed ships. So, I mean, it's difficult for me to speak to that directly, Dutch, because of the NDA. What I can say is that it's going to have a really good like just below 6 kilometer concealment. So destroyer competitive, sneaky destroyer competitive. It's not as good as a Shimakaze, and that it's got long range dumbfire torpedoes. So I think that it would be able to perform missions that would use those two skills together. But I'm going to try to not. I'm going to tread carefully here because of the NDA that the ship is still under at the moment. So I think that's maybe one of the ways you can imagine that concealment gets put to work. So we did want to put this in front of you guys. If you guys have questions, I've got the work in progress sign on over here. If you guys have questions about numbers we can get you from the screen, we'd be happy to take those. But just be aware that even if you're not really thinking about buying a submarine, other people are with their steel, and we've got a coupon coming up. Gato's been in the test pipeline for a little while. I can't speak to when it's coming out. I don't believe it's been officially announced. I don't know. So you can expect to see these things pretty soon, and so you will be contending with the Gato. I'm interested to see how the community responds to the ship and everything. That's for sure. Dutch says, I know, Clyde. It seems like a stealthy Torp DD with perma smoke. Yeah, I mean, again, we've got a lot of DDs that will out-stealth this guy, right? Your ship is going to out-stealth it, for sure.
I still have that opinion about submarine play in general, though, that it's like, it's weapons like a destroyer, but handles like a battleship. Like, you know, the torpedoes still only come out of a tight angle on the front and the back. And I know people don't like playing against submarines. I don't really like playing against them either. This one on paper, looks like it has a pretty potent torpedo loadout. If you shotgun with those gearing torps, you're going to kill most everything because it's a lot of alpha damage. But we'll see when this comes out. Obviously, the currency it's being sold for, when it comes out, you're going to see two types of players in it. You're going to see really bad players in it. You're going to see really good players in it. And so
it's almost like they're players that play World of Warships.
You're gonna, you know, it's not the in-between. It's not the in-between guy that goes and gets this. It's a guy who's like angry about getting sunk in his Colorado all the time by submarines, and somehow he has the steel for it, or it's you know, it's John the Ruthless, right? So take your pick.
Right, GTR's up here.
It's that kind of thing, right? So anyway, it's that's how it's going to play. I don't know. Looking at the statistics on this, looking at the changes they just announced for the Russian tech line submarines, looking at how Belau or U-2501 perform, or Thrasher for that matter, I don't know if this is the best tier 10 submarine, because like we said,
it's hard to say. Right.
Yeah, like I just don't have a good mindset for comparing them. You and I actually have to like really want to talk about submarines to do that.
And we haven't yet.
And we haven't yet. It is what it is.
I did just pull it up on, again, I'm just looking on Ship Tool, and sorted by health, Gato and Belau have the same hit points, 20,200. They look really similar if you look across those numbers. Gato's a little bit faster. Belau turns a little bit tighter, in terms of that. So I think players who are familiar with Belau might have some understanding of how to adapt from Belau to Gato and understand how it might perform in terms of maneuverability, things like that. If we go to the sonar kit, Gato's sonar range is a lot shorter than Belau's. Belau's reaches at 12 kilometers. Gato's is less, 6 kilometers by a lot. So that's actually kind of interesting. We'll have to see. It may be not as good as at the sub v sub stuff. Maybe it needs to stand off not.
Well, I mean, the homing torps.
Other subs.
The homing torps are like exceptionally short range, right? So you just looking at the statistics on this one and how it's laid out, it would seem that you would be using those longer range torps more. Almost kind of like how I like to play I-56. I see Auto Rides bringing that up. The difference being is that unlike I-56, this thing actually is sneaky and can submerge.
I was going to say I-56, which has 4,000 more hit points and is enormously easy to spot, but yeah.
I think mechanically, though, like both of them are a similar. I think both of them are a similar concept that occurred in that era for submarine design, where I-56 was considered like a cruiser-sized submarine, and I believe Gato was that same kind of concept on the U.S. side. And so you might be looking at some kind of similarities in regards to design artifacts from actual history that have leaked over into the game.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, we just wanted to put this out for you guys to consider it. Kind of like last time we had this discussion, we talked a little bit about Z42 and how that was coming, and we had to kind of speculate wildly about it. And so here we are, and that is what we've got in terms of the Gato coming up and coming out for us pretty soon. So I wanted to jump back and just do a recap of, oops, I got to hit a different button as well. This one here. So just looking at what we've got in terms of steel ships, guys, that was every single one of them, including the forthcoming Gato submarine, which is coming into the game here shortly. So you've got a lot of choices, 11 ships. It says 10. It's actually 11 ships plus one whenever Gato comes out. We do have our coupon coming up in, I think we just looked and it was 18 days. So very soon here, early in the month of June, you'll get your 25% resources coupon back. We enjoy doing these kinds of conversations. I want to thank you guys for coming and being a part of this. We're going to keep streaming after this, but if you're watching it on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube. And you can, of course, come over and hang out with us at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive, where we do this kind of stuff about 3 times a week. Usually it's games and things, but we're doing these special events. If you're interested in coal ships, that conversation is coming. I haven't picked a date for it yet, but probably in the next week or two, I'll try to find a time that works for Skada and myself. We'll do this same thing, and we'll try to get through all of the coal ships, of which there's approximately 40 plus or minus. So we're going to have to be more efficient in terms of timing.
I think it's like 3 hours to do 12-ish steel ships. There's like 400 coal ships. We might as well book a Sunday. It'll be, you know how the Wargaming people just did 25 hours night at the museum or whatever. Everybody just settle in.
We'll have to be a little more efficient there. I did prepare all of the pictures and stuff for it, so we're really excited about getting together to talk about coal ships. We really like coal ships, and coal ships are super popular because they're so attainable, and there's some really great ships that they've added in the last few months. So I think that's going to be a cool conversation.
And Unreal Allen's comments right. When we do the coal video, we'll probably do that either, if not after 12.4, which will be after 12.4 because that's this week. So we will then lump in the free XP ships that are all rolling over to coal, which makes our conversation that much longer. 3 or 4 more ships.
Well, and we'll have to do some of them a little bit more efficiently for sure. Honorbound says the coal video on YouTube is good. Well, good. I hopefully then the new version is good too. We're excited about it. So, and then after that, you and I have talked about a couple of other ones that we'd like to do. I think the one we're going to do, or go ahead.
Yeah. No, Desperately Madly. I really want to do this format to talk about every Dockyard ship that's ever come out.
That's what we'll do next after coal.
Yeah. We wanted to try to do it during this Dyson Dockyard, and it just didn't happen. So ostensibly, I don't know that if Cheg wants to break any news about dockyards in the summertime, but
yeah, Cheg, you wanna spill some beans? Here, spill some beans, please.
We would assume that there will be a dockyard in August maybe or something, and so that will sometime maybe this summer in the northern hemisphere. Clyde plays global. Clyde plays
live globally.
We will do that, and I know it's not a thing where we can talk about like Odin and you can go get it, but we just want to do that. I want to do that conversation. So,
and with the advent of some of those ships showing up in Santa crates. That's the first time this last holiday season was the first time that had ever been done. And so the idea that those boats are available, even if it's in a random box method, of course, which I understand there's some feelings about that. That does make that conversation a little bit more interesting because we may see that trend continue this next holiday season. I'm not sure. There's no guarantees about the future, but
I'll bet my hat that we'll have year 2. Because we basically had year 1 of Dockyard ships show up in those crates. I think sans Puerto Rico, and I think year 2 Dockyard ships will probably make their way into those crates this year, but we'll see.
Bowmaster says DD Dockyard Cheg, and Cheg goes, "What? You guys don't want another German or Japanese battleship?"
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Hey, Cheg's as a community manager is a guy that interacts with the people who play this game, and he's probably heard before a concern over that.
I would suspect that Cheg has received many messages. And guys, let's let Cheg have a weekend. Let's not hassle him too much here. He's here as a civilian today, but he's what part of his job is feedback management, I'm sure, or at least somebody he works with is feedback collector guy. But yeah, definitely interested in some variety there. I'd love to see another destroyer in a dockyard, but you know.
Oh, I'd love to see a submarine or an aircraft carrier. I think everybody'd like that.
I'd love to see what would happen if that happened.
I assume I'm gonna put the idea out in the world now that the next dockyard will be Russian Tier 10 submarine Red October.
Oh, that'd be. Did you think it has a hybrid worm drive? What kind of drive is it?
It's a caterpillar drive.
Is it got the caterpillar drive?
It's got a caterpillar drive. It also has ballistic missiles. Yeah.
Some things in here don't react well to bullets.
Yes, yeah, it comes with Sean Connery captain. Marco Ramius is your captain with Sean Connery voiceover done by some Sean Connery impersonator.
That'd be amazing.
I'm guessing Boggsy can do Sean Connery, so they'll probably just have him record the audio.
I think he would. I bet you he would totally do it.
Yep.
Some things in here don't react too well to bullets. Yeah.
Like yeah, thank you, Cheg.
I don't react well to bullets.
I expect my free tier 10 steel camo for progeniting this idea, Cheg. You can send it to my NA account.
Yeah, you want your steel overtime pay?
Yeah, I want that steel Gunlu.
That's hilarious, actually. Okay, anyway, guys, we're rambling here, but we're going to wrap this up so we can cut the YouTube portion. We're going to go back and play some World of Warships. We'll do our next giveaway as soon as we get back out of this screen. Thanks a ton for watching Ship Show with us today. We hope this was entertaining and educational, and if nothing else, something you could put on in the background and listen. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. This weird long-form content, people seem to at least like a little bit. So if you think it's useful and if you know somebody else who might, let them know. I'm going to go through and bookmark all of the ships in here. So if you want to send a friend to a specific section of the video, that'll make it really easy. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Well, I do care, but it doesn't matter. I want to make it as convenient as possible for you to watch the parts of this video that you guys think are most valuable. With all of that said, thank you very much. We're going to head on back over to the studio. Goodbye.